So yeah, no, when I go live on Instagram, it's always like immediately get flooded by like 1,200 people, something like that.
Yep.
And then as the next 30 seconds roll by, it proceeds to drop all the way to like 100.
When
That's
they
what I do every
realize
time I
you're
see it
not
live.
when they realize you're not juggling chainsaws and getting tattooed
Well, whenever I've
simultaneously,
done it.
they don't care all of a sudden.
Well, whenever I've done it with like a gimmick. So like
Right.
I'll have something that can kind of like I'll have that weird nose thing that I wear sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can put that in as new people show up and kind of keep their interest or what. You have to almost, it's like dealing with children, where it's like
Yep.
if you don't have a toy to show them, they get very bored
Mm-hmm.
and cranky, right? And then they leave.
And they say rude things.
They do sometimes say
Yeah.
weird things.
What if you
and
went
you get
on
the
and-
weirdest shit ever said to you?
What if you
too.
started
I don't doubt
promising the weirdest of stuff
Give me,
is going to happen in 30
I want to
seconds?
see a close-up of your septum. It's like,
Ooh.
why do you want that? Who wants that?
I promise you don't want that.
Yeah, it's just a giant hole in my
You're
nose.
asking
I
to
don't
see
care.
inside my nose.
Oh, well,
Somebody
I had a
wants
guy
it.
actually before we started doing the podcast for about a year on my YouTube. Whenever I would do a vlog, he would leave a comment that got more aggressive as time went on, asking for close-up pictures of my nose.
Really?
Yeah. And every time he commented, it was a little more demanding.
Is that a fascination for people?
It must
I've
be.
never heard of it.
Noses?
Well, I don't know, man. I've heard of all kinds of things. Wrists, elbows.
All right.
But,
Yeah,
this guy was, like, he was disheveled by the end of it. He's one of the only people I've had the misfortune of having to block on YouTube.
Ooh.
Because, like, I've had to do that on Instagram. But
I never want to be a person that has to be blocked for a reason.
well, it was becoming, like, where he was hassling me for pictures of the inside of my nose.
I guess just don't be like commenting weird crap all the time and you'll be fine.
But sometimes I might want to if it's the funniest thing I can think of.
Well, just make
I
sure
like
you
those.
choose the
Yeah, we
prettiest
talked about
girl
that.
and talk about a part of her body a lot, and you'll be
No.
fine. You'll get blocked
That's
in no
creepy.
time.
Yeah. I don't want that, though. I like the idea of not being blocked. Unless I was like, I've heard this thing of like people doing ghost accounts so they can troll under ghost accounts.
Oh, I've definitely seen it.
Yeah.
I haven't just heard about it. I've seen it. I know of people that do that. They
Yeah.
do it to me quite
There's
often.
one of the
Hi, Jerry. I know it's you.
One of the dudes that I listened to on another podcast, he just admitted to doing it. He's been doing it for years on Twitter to his friends that are in other bands. And they'll always be like, I don't understand why I get so much hate from this one person. And it like he has these characters and they're built up to do these things, and he even like plans out interactions so that their interactions develop over time.
Oh,
as, like,
for
a long
sure. There's a
con.
lot of people who play the long game with this, and they're ready to be blocked.
It's so
Like,
weird.
Here, I'll tell you another little story that happened. There was a guy who one time commented one of the most hateful, ridiculous things ever, right?
Yeah.
So I blocked him. I didn't respond to him. He came back with another account and continued in the same vein. So I blocked that. And my game was, I'm not going to respond to this guy no matter what he says.
Yeah.
And it was a slow day on Instagram. This is the only reason why I can even see these comments, because there's sometimes where my notification bar is moving really quick if I'm trending or something. Anyway, I was on a slow heat, and this guy just kept coming. I was like, wow, how many accounts does this guy have? Like, it was at least 9.
Like, is he copy and pasting? Like he's
No,
just...
no. It was like, you think you can block me kind of thing, and then he'd come back and continue the narrative.
Like, what's your motive? What are you
I
getting
was
out
like,
of
how
this,
much
dude?
time does this dude have?
Okay, so new idea. Like you can use
And they
social
were-
media as soon as you've hunted and gathered your own food.
Yeah.
Then all of a
game
sudden,
on.
Wow. There goes
All I know
Remy.
is I don't spend enough.
There goes the Remy Show.
oh, you can do it.
Just clips to a cut, like cuts to these couches with no
Just
people.
empty, empty for hours.
So I don't
Remy
spend
Show
nearly
number
enough
50.
time commenting and trolling on people. So I really need to get my game up there. Otherwise,
Oh, no, you don't.
I'll be on my deathbed
Don't
and I'll be
do it.
laying there going, I really wish I spent more time trolling people on the
Yes,
internet.
that meme that I seen Rogan post. I had to
that's the
reshare
one.
it. It's so good.
Did I hear it from you?
We talked about it
Probably.
a little bit,
Okay, good.
but
It's
like
within this sphere.
it was pretty goddamn bang on.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
that
pretty
was
perfect.
pretty bang on.
Well, like, yeah, it's all fascinating to me. I've never been that person, But also, I don't really understand these types of things. Like, I don't think anybody really cares what I think. Yet, I'm doing a podcast where I talk for ever, and people listen to it, and it's weird.
Who cares what anyone thinks, really?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
We're always listening to people talk from the vantage point of kind of like, what can I get from this?
One of the
like, what am I
sexiest-
interested in?
One of the sexiest things as a human to begin with is not caring what people think.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
no one's hotter than that person who just like
Nonchalant.
Yeah?
This is
You
your
think that,
approach
do
to
you?
dating.
So?
You were talking about this on
was I?
episode 48?
That seems like something I would say.
47. I think it was. It was the one that was just you and I.
Okay.
And how you play it way too chill.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's by accident, sort of.
But no, like it marries very well to what you just said.
Oh yeah, actually.
Right? Because like here you are nonchalantly expressing something you've told me was something you would employ as a dating tactic.
Yeah.
And
Meanwhile, like I'm not texting you because I left my phone over there and I haven't looked at it today.
There's nothing less attractive than desperation.
Exactly. Like,
Right?
like I think how that came up was because I had a friend I was tattooing. I know a friend is a strong word for the situation, but anyway, I was tattooing a friend, and he told me that
An acquaintance.
he had this weird, he had
Yeah.
this experience with
A
this
cohort.
girl. This girl kind of screwed off because he didn't message her enough. So the next chick he was messaging, he told her, "Hey, if I'm not messaging you much, it's just to build the mystery."
Yeah.
Like, oh well, you've pooped all over that opportunity, didn't you?
Yeah. There's no mystery because you've just said it.
I was going to get into a point here before I lose it.
Oh, good.
About
Because I'm going nowhere.
I know. That's why I'm here. I think. I didn't say we're going anywhere better. Trust me.
Yeah.
No,
We
it's
might
just
have been
we're
better
here.
off wherever the hell you were taking us, to be quite honest.
Who knows?
But there's a guy who has a very small page on Instagram, and the only reason why I know of this character, I want to preface this, is because I'm in the body mod scene, right? But he's not interested in me. He is interested in some of the people I know. He likes distorted shapes, like holes and stuff, overgrown holes. And he draws like pornographic imagery
That's a
of
disconcerting
different
image in my
body
head.
shapes and different modifications and stuff like this.
Okay.
And for example, he'll comment things like, I have a friend who has a 40 millimeter labret now, and he's getting fitted for a lip plate and all this
That's
stuff.
so big.
Yeah. So this guy will comment things like, you have the perfect lip for stretching. Your size is boundless. Like stuff like that.
It's so
Like,
weird.
and it's the way that he puts it too.
Yeah,
Like, it's
yeah.
really like
Weirdo? Like that kind of
it's
thing?
weirdo, but it's not just weirdo. It's very educated weirdo.
Oh.
Like it's high vernacular. Like it's very, very
It's-
intelligent, but it's creepy as it gets.
He has a scientific understanding of the situation, and it still turns him on.
Yeah, so this guy is known by a handful of people in this community, and he's never taken an interest in me,
He's
which
on a watch list.
probably for the best. Maybe I didn't stretch anything big enough because he only likes the extremes of the extremes, like where I'm sitting here with a big hole in my lip, but it's moderate if you like body mod.
Yeah.
Like it's very tame, and I never planned for it to be anything more than that. But for some people, if they get into like 40 to 60 millimeter territory, that's where you can fit things through it, right? You can do things with that. I would have to
things, eh?
imagine that if I'm looking at this guy with like a fetish kind of mindset, like there's got to be something to that.
In his mind's eye, he's picturing something very sexual happening.
Yeah, there has to be. Like, because
That's
what
weird.
else? What else do you get that fixated on?
Don't call his sexual interests weird.
Sorry. It's his own.
Well, I'm not gonna
Fair.
say that it's weird, but it's weird if you think of it like not typical, right?
It's weird if you think of him imagining you in that setting when you're not interested in anything.
We're
even
not going to
closely
go to
related to it.
OnlyFans again, are we?
Oh no, I'll go there.
Well, I mean, you can go there if you want. It's just... you have to
But yeah,
pay.
no, there's
Oh no, I'm on the other side of the fence
gotcha.
here.
close-up
Yeah.
nose guy though. I think is just a more savage version of the guy I'm describing.
Sure.
Less cultured or less like intellectual in his pursuits. It's less tasteful.
More garish.
Yeah, exactly. It's the blunt instrument, right? Like
He's not being smooth at all. He's not being in the bush in the least.
exactly
He's like,
where the other
"Hey."
guy has become kind of his own like weird like art form.
He's the guy in the crowd yelling, "Show me your tits!"
Yeah, he wants the same thing, but he has no way of communicating it properly. Where the other guy has turned it into, really an art form because he draws his own exaggerations on the human form too.
Oh wow.
And posts them sometimes.
Man, the world is so wild.
Yeah, there's a lot out there that you wouldn't even know. Like, unless you're in a corner, you can't see the corners of the corner. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean, but I do know what you mean.
It's like the more you know you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One of those
really. You
things-
find yourself in a
Yeah.
strange, dark landscape, and you're like, there's some weird stuff in life.
You're like, oh, there's a bunch of things over there, and then you go over there and you're like, oh, there's a lot of things over here.
Oh,
and it
wow.
keeps getting narrower
Those
and
first
narrower.
few things that I seen over there, those weren't the last few things over there.
That's the tip of the iceberg. It's
Yeah.
a big iceberg.
Yeah, and that's anything.
Just
Yeah.
for me, like, what's wrong with the normal stuff? Is it bad?
Oh, I don't think there's anything
let's-
wrong
let's
with
Just
put
you
it-
get
normal.
bored?
Let's
or
put it
what?
this way. When's the last time you went to a crash test derby?
Oh, I would totally go if they were around.
Well, when's the last time you went to one?
I haven't.
I'll tell you a secret. They're super around.
Really? Where?
Yesterday, I tattooed a guy and his daughter, and it's his hobby. So
No
he's
way.
A, this guy's got a million hobbies. B,
Yeah.
he's the crash test derby master. He's shown me his stuff. He's walked me through the technical specifications of how he builds these cars, how long a car will last, how long an engine will last, what kind of fuel he burns. This guy is an expert at crash test derbies.
I don't need that much on derbies.
It's a write off for his business.
How?
No.
And the money, and he constantly advertising.
Oh, yeah.
And he constantly wins prize money that's cash in his pocket. And if he goes to the States, he'll be famous.
No, we're getting into.
you kidding me?
Not kidding at all.
We're
That's
getting
a thing?
into.
Yeah. So again, the corner just keeps getting more cornery
Oh,
as you get
wow.
closer to it.
darker and closer.
Yeah.
Like
That's
But
wild.
for a bunch of people, this is their everyday life. He's got 12 chassis already gutted and ready to put a motor, drivetrain, batteries, electrical in for his next crash test derby car.
See, I always thought it was like, oh, you just pick up an old sedan that's at a junkyard.
No, he's got a $10,000 custom built small block Chevy
to slam into other cars.
that he puts in
Yeah,
another car.
yeah, I put a
He
lot of money
replaces the
into this.
axles. He's running forklift tires in the damn thing.
Wow.
Like this guy has it into a science.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's a
and now
lane.
Kevin's like,
That's
It's
an
a
interest.
whole-
it
it's a
is
whole lane.
around, and
Yeah.
I'm going there next week.
Well, now that it's even available to me, I'm kind of like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah. I don't care. I used to go to them as a kid. with
Oh,
my
that is
grandpa.
a thing. I still don't care.
Still
Yeah.
don't care.
To me,
Imagine
it's like
that.
that's something I like want to like cruise through and see on a sports highlight and go like, huh, yeah, people crash cars. That's cool. And then just keep on going to something else.
Meanwhile, here's a guy
me, it's
who's been in
almost-
a literal 1,000 car accidents.
Wow.
Because in an hour in this arena, he'll get into 70 or 80 car accidents.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Now, to me, it's almost the same as NASCAR. Like, that's how much difference there is to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anything about this stuff.
Right.
Man, they're real close.
But what that
the only
what that-
difference
Oh,
is
they're in the
one year-
same corner for
But
sure.
what that says to me is because you'll get a guy in here who's a NASCAR expert, and he'll be like, "What the hell are you talking about? It's
How do
nothing
you not
like
know
that."
that? Yeah.
And then
Oh,
he'll
yeah.
tell us like an hour of information on how they're different.
Yeah.
But that's the same thing as body mod, right?
That's the same as my grandma looking at me getting my nose pierced or getting a tattoo on my chest as being the same general thing.
Or even
Yeah.
farther, you getting a tattoo on your chest versus getting a full body, full face tattoo.
yeah,
Right,
fair,
like it's
fair.
not understanding the degrees of separation.
It's all the
Right.
same amount of my grandson must have gone to jail.
That's where I've been made into a meme, actually quite a few times now. Not going to brag too much,
You should.
but
Just throw it out there.
I've seen myself
Go and brush your shoulder
memed like what my mom thinks when I get my first tattoo. Right, like
That's sweet.
I've seen that meme.
I wish I was memed.
I've also seen
cool.
memes of me where the final boss of piercers, like when you've beaten all the other piercers and now you have to fight the final boss, and it's just the picture of me with my arms crossed. I've also seen
so great.
your daughter brings this guy home. What
Yep.
do you do?
Oh,
Right.
shit.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, except those are funny until you see Well, I don't look too much anymore, just to give you an idea. But the comments are like, I would kick that guy's ass. I would kill him. I would throw him in an incinerator.
See,
like,
that's
it
where
gets
you should
pretty
get.
insane.
That's where you should get huge. You
Yeah,
should
yeah.
get you
Well,
should
there
just
is
take
that
steroids,
guy.
get jacked, and then.
Good luck putting me in an incinerator. I weigh 300 pounds.
Well, there is that guy, El
I am an
Tattoo. I've showed him
incinerator.
to you. Whenever I tell Sarah I want to get buff,
Yeah.
I show her that guy, and she's like, "No, Remy, no, don't
Yeah.
do that. Stop showing me him."
That's good, because like I'll be pushing you in that direction. So it's good that Sarah tempers you away from that.
Well, he's like, he's a bodybuilder.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he actually does like the bodybuilding physique moves and like, you know what I'm talking about, right?
yeah.
I'm familiar with
Like
it.
the
yeah.
whole thing. So like he does. It looks to a heterosexual male that has no particular problem with anyone's orientation.
Where are we going with
I
this?
want to preface this.
I'm so excited.
It seems a little homoerotic to me.
What
watching
like pro bodybuilding?
watching the way the movements and stuff, like it's just it's
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
a bit dancey for me.
It's interesting to take the
Depending on
the
the-
manliest men, physique wise,
Yes.
and make them do the
yeah,
daintiest
exactly.
movements.
Well, not to mention it's not just
And
the
it's
movement;
not
it's
that,
the
though.
execution of what you do into the movement.
It always
Oh,
makes
is
me
it?
wonder
Yeah.
what's wrong with me that I feel that way, but I don't think it's just me. I think it's most straight men would
Well, it's-
probably get
it's
a
like
weird
any-
feeling from it.
It's like anything where it's like an avenue that you don't understand, and then the extremes of it.
Well, I don't
It's-
get that
it's
feeling
so-
from NASCAR.
I feel kind of weird with any
I don't know.
any performance or competition thing that has specifically to do with just the appearance of a person. You know,
Aesthetic.
aesthetic. It's kind of a weird time.
Do I give you
Well,
that
it's
feeling?
it's symmetry, right?
Nah.
Like the idea of bodybuilding is human form, symmetry, size. Like
Yeah.
those are kind of the, and then the
And
execution.
anytime
of it.
you put the words form and size together, the imagination can get carried
maybe
away.
And then
your
you're judging a
imagination.
guy on symmetry.
well, like, I don't know.
It's
but
a
like
weird time.
I have
man.
a bunch of friends that have done it, so for me it's like it's less weird.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Um,
right. You know people personally.
yeah.
I know who you're talking about for some of it anyway.
Yeah. And it's one of those like when you start looking at all the work out of it, it's like okay, I get it.
Oh, it's a full commitment and
Yeah,
a full
yeah, it's
sport.
not-
But just on its like
But most of the work that goes into it doesn't look that way. Like the work that
Sure.
you're doing for that,
Yeah.
it looks normal.
yeah.
But then when you go for the spectacle and the performance of it,
well, even just posing class. Like posing class is a weird time.
oh yeah, I'm sure.
It's a real weird time. Like the way that you have to like stand and in different ways to make things accentuate. It's like it's really weird.
Remember
Yeah.
when
It's not
poser
just
was
like-
an insult?
Yeah, I know.
There could be a literal poser. I went to posing class to pose like this.
Yeah, you hire a posing coach.
I'm a professional poser.
Seriously, that's a thing.
Huh.
Yeah, and it's
Crazy.
like
Imagine being like out on a date with a woman. I'm a posing coach.
I'm a posing coach.
Wow.
And you've got like a $500,000 house probably.
My guess is what you would say is I'm in the fitness industry.
Yeah, I don't think people in the fitness industry make that much money.
See, then you
Some
get
of
into
them do.
those. You get into those specialized
Yeah, oh, yeah.
occupations. Where I was talking about the guy who's like, I service furnaces.
Yeah.
Like this is my job. All
Oh,
I
yeah.
do is deal with furnaces. There's a lot to know in a furnace.
Yeah.
Like
There's a
that's what
pilot
a
light.
posing instructor is.
There's some gas going in there.
It's just so
There you go.
like
That's it.
you're in a particular
lot to
of
know.
the particular at that point where it's like you
Yeah.
do this one thing,
You're a
Yep.
specialist.
but if your fridge breaks, well, can't help you with that.
Check its
That's right.
pilot light. Fridges don't have a pilot light. Well, I
I
can't
know a
help you.
little about
Propane
fridges,
fridges
but my
do.
friend Hank knows everything about fridges.
You ever seen a propane fridge?
Why would you cool something with fire?
Yeah, good idea.
You need to learn about propane fridges.
I do not need to learn about propane fridges.
I've had
That makes me so mad for some
I've had
reason.
several propane fridges.
Why?
And
Of course you
Why
have.
would that be a
because
thing?
campers and because my grandparents live in the middle of nowhere.
That doesn't.
Because in my grandparents' day and age, like they don't manage finances well, so there were definitely times in my dad's childhood where there was no electricity because they just didn't pay the bill. So you
happens
get
to the best of us.
so you get a 400-pound propane tank out back,
Yep.
and that's the fridge and the stove.
Okay, so I understand it from that perspective, but just in terms of the logic of what I think, in terms of getting fire to make something cold,
It works.
seems counterproductive.
It works surprisingly similar to a normal Freon fridge. A normal Freon fridge uses an electric motor to
But
move
there
the
is-
coolant around.
There is a
As-
point
Yep.
at which heat can be like cold though, or like the other way around.
What are we saying?
No, like there is something to what Scott's saying.
Basically, evaporation and condensation.
Like, it's
There's a
weird
reason the thing outside is a condenser in your AC unit.
Yeah, I
and the thing
definitely don't
inside-
understand the science on it, but I know what you're talking about.
I just think it sounds counterintuitive.
This is why I'm not a furnace repairman.
Yeah, I hear you. Or a propane.
If you
fridge
boil something on
Yeah.
the hot side, it becomes a gas.
It's
And
so
becoming
weird.
a gas is evaporation. And that has a cooling effect. So as long as the cooling evaporation portion happens in the right place and the condensation and boiling portion happens in the right place, you have a system that produces heat here and cold here.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
I know that's basic science, and I get it.
It isn't basic
it-
science anymore. So like
Sure, fair.
not to
Yeah.
us, because like what are we learning in school? Nothing very useful.
No.
Like it's like you would think that we would want to teach people things that could map on in some way,
Yeah.
but instead it's like, where does this thing go on the gender unicorn? Right? Like it's just very it's not that there isn't a place for that. It's just wouldn't you rather know about finances?
Oh, 100% I would. I
have
still
you
wish
know-
someone had taught me
I'll
about
have you know that in
finances.
the gender spectrum, the unicorn is the third party having sex with the couple.
Yes.
Well, I even had the
that
gender
unicorn is a thruple.
the genderbread
Yes.
man. I think we've talked about
The
before.
genderbread man.
Yeah.
Where it's where does the park go? Where does your park go? Right? Like it's you decide kind of thing.
And suddenly the genderbread man
They
has
don't
a dick in
influence
each
it
hand.
one way or
Man,
the
we
other.
got to
but
get out of here.
I'm pretty sure you're not even.
Are we deep in the wrong
What are
territory,
we
Kev?
doing?
No, I'm pretty sure you're not even allowed to.
Quit driving towards the wall, man.
I'm pretty sure you're not even allowed to tell if you're the teacher, you're not even allowed to tell the parents.
This is like you're a driver in NASCAR and you're only wanting to turn right.
Okay, well, turn left then.
Thank you. Turn left.
Why don't
Jesus
you turn
Christ.
us left?
Turn us left, Kev.
I want to actually. I do have
Tell
a-
us about the 50th episode.
Well, no, that's where I
special
wanted to go
feature.
next. Actually,
Yeah.
was,
Let's run towards that.
our first.
We probably should have started the podcast with, "Hey, congratulations! It's the 50th episode."
You made it to number
Remy.
50.
I don't think that's.
You guys
not
all
good.
nailed it.
I'm not giving myself a congratulations, but when we started this podcast, it was like, I think we'd already done four podcasts, I believe.
Yeah, oh yeah, when we had
That didn't
technical
work?
difficulties. Where we did like 5-6 hours of talking and we couldn't use any of it.
Yeah, and that's so disheartening.
Oh yeah. It
Like,
was like
I remember thinking, we can't have these conversations forever. We
No.
better get these right.
yeah, well we thought there was some sort of finite amount of talking that you and I could do. And we very quickly learned that that's not the case.
Just kidding. It just keeps going.
Oh my word. Every week we get talking and then all of a sudden we're like, "Oh man, right, we're supposed to do a show."
Well, I remember like,
Or right. We should probably go tattoo now.
Yeah, jeez.
now I remember I was thinking on episode 5, I want to talk about this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like, I think you even said it. I wouldn't worry too much about that because I think it's probably just going to come out anyway.
Yeah.
Like there were certain bullet points that I really wanted to get to. And from the way I was writing the show in my head was like, if I had a 20 episode run of like a sitcom or something, or not a sitcom, a drama, you want to tell the story of someone's life in a certain amount of time.
I think you're alone on that one.
Yeah. So anyway, you're telling the story of someone's life in 20 episodes.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I didn't think we would have
You were thinking in terms of seasons.
I didn't think we would have 100 episodes in us. I knew that I wanted that to be a thing, but I thought Remy isn't going to be that interesting. Like Remy's not 100 episodes. Remy's not something that you would watch forever.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
There's a big difference between informative, scripted content and dude talk show
Yeah,
style.
yeah.
Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
ran into a friend in the forest last weekend. So
You
we were
told me about
hiking,
it.
and yeah, so out of nowhere comes this group of 6 people, and turns out it's 2 of my buddies from back in my
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witness days, right? So I'm like, wow, incredible seeing you guys here in the middle of the forest.
You guys evangelizing to trees too?
Not even on a trail. We're literally crossing this log, and here's the boys. Ha! How about that? So anyway, got talking, and he talks about how he's producing this podcast. I'm like, oh wow, tell me about that. He's like, yeah, it's 6 episodes, and it's this
6
guy's
episodes.
experiences, and it's this
How
like
neat.
well produced, informative, intelligent thing. I'm like, wow, the podcast I'm working on. is nothing like that.
quite
Not
that.
at all.
There's-
There's no script to this.
Don't get me wrong. When someone looks at it, it looks like it's in the same corner, but it does not share a lot. There's not a lot of commonality.
A podcast
Shares the
can
word
be
podcast.
Yeah.
literally anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So within literally anything, you have all the corners.
Like,
This will be another one of those technical difficulties
Yeah, I know.
episodes.
Whatever we lose here, we're never getting back.
Few more years of this, man, we'll get it down.
But I used to be worried about that. Like I used to think, if we lose this, we'll never have it back.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like we're never gonna get to this same point again because you can't stop, like start and stop a conversation exactly where you were going with it.
Yeah, and,
because
and,
your
and
thoughts
retracing
mature
your
differently.
steps is not going to be as interesting or informative
It's
as
not even
trying
just
as just
that.
having a fresh conversation.
It's that your mind, not let alone the other person's mind, won't be working in the same ways to kind of create the same directions you were planning on going. So if you try and stiff arm that along, you're gonna run out quicker.
yeah.
Like anytime I'll do a vlog, if I have an intention, it's 10
Shorter.
minutes. I can do 10 minutes, and then I can kind of pull it apart. Like I have 10 minutes of subject matter here, but you end up pulling apart to 13 to 15. If you go in like, I need to hit 10 minutes and I have these topics, it's like, oh shit, I'm done at 6.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't stretch when you're just going for bullet points.
I think like being too rigid on anything, that's probably one of the things that we've learned doing so much stuff. Is it's like if you go in too rigid, you're not going to hit it, whatever that is.
And whatever you do get isn't going to be as interesting.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the real world, we've come to witness a very clear pattern that is, instead of having a lack of content, it's quite the opposite. We show up, we talk for 20 minutes, then we start a podcast.
Well, we didn't know how many jobs
we
you
do,
had.
we do a whole podcast.
That's a big part of this.
And then we still talk for 20 minutes after the podcast.
Yep.
So it's like the quantity of material won't be the issue.
Right.
But I'll say I feel like we've gotten better at conversation.
Speaking
because
of jobs, though, I posted a story today where I'm building a bungalow in Cambodia.
I think
I
I've
was
seen
going
it.
to say that.
Yeah.
Like that looked as though it was something you're building in your backyard, but then I was like, oh no, wait.
Nope,
This
that's-
is another country.
That's the jungle.
yeah.
Oh, that's not Scott's backyard.
Yeah, no.
Uh-uh.
I mean, it was
No,
probably at one point in
The
time.
way we
That-
were
I was
just
actually- I lived in
speaking,
that.
though,
So the second year I was there, I lived in that shack.
Crazy.
felt a bit like a referendum on the Remy Show, the way you were just talking. Well, I think that we got better at these things, and now it's over. Right? Like,
this is
like
this is where I
episode
leave you.
50 is the last
The
Remy
sign-off.
Show. There will be no more.
I just am impressed that we kept going.
Well,
Like, that's cool.
You wouldn't believe how many will fizzle out around 30 to 40 episodes.
They say it's most common that people leave podcasting after episode 13.
There are
can't
times
get past
where I've got a busy week and I'm like, okay, going to work 2 hours early on a Wednesday
Yeah.
morning is actually extra work right now. It does feel like work. And it's kind of more of a hobby thing. But it's still super cool to be a part of something that just keeps going and it fills a unique space in my life.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
100%.
nowhere else in my life am I just making content simply with, words and speech.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely doing that in other places, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not as good.
This is my only outlet for that.
This
bullshit.
is the funnest content I get to make.
Yeah, I would say so.
podcast, and I guess that's why it's probably the least popular version of
Because we're having
content.
fun.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, you're having
so-
too much fun.
Yeah.
This is only serving. Well, it's not just serving us. There's people who watch it, but I feel like that's probably a life lesson that the more you enjoy something, the more just for you it might be.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
You know?
which actually serves how I live my life anyway. Like I'm a very experiential based person.
Yeah.
It's like I don't give a we can swear now, right? I don't give a fuck what you think or you think. I'm kind of here to or I don't care how
Breaking the
fleeting this
fourth
might be.
wall.
I'm here to have an experience.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I remember I remember thinking because the first couple podcasts we were over 1,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, this is not a referendum on the Remy Show.
No.
But
This is
Now
not like
we're
a
at
season
4
wrap-up.
views.
we had we're really a season wrap up. That's a good way to put it. This is like when you get the behind the scenes of a
clip
show
show.
or something.
Actually, this will
You
be
know when-
released.
Director's commentary.
Yeah.
This will be released right around the beginning of summer.
Yeah.
So it kind of is a season wrap up.
Fair
Well, I
enough.
mean, like week 52 will be our year.
yeah.
Yeah.
But 50 is such a better round number.
Isn't it crazy though that we haven't missed anything? Like we've not missed one.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
we
we-
have.
No,
We haven't missed-
in
We made up
scheduling.
for it.
Yeah,
Right.
We haven't
right.
missed a week, but we've made up. Yeah, we haven't missed a week airing since we aired
Yeah.
the first one,
Yeah.
which took a while.
But that's like that in itself is crazy.
Yeah.
Like we haven't missed anything.
The static of it.
Yeah. Even
The-
with our stupid episodes that we can't get the camera to work or whatever. Like it's still, we put them out.
Yeah,
You know,
why
And
not?
they're up there.
Yeah.
But
For a few people to watch.
Rowan listens.
I
to them.
remember-
Yeah, exactly.
She needed a mention.
Yeah,
She's
exactly.
due.
thinking more like
Credit where credit's
because
due,
we
man.
had
Yeah.
I think the first episode hit 1,000 views before the week was over, and I was thinking like, oh, if we could get 1,000 views every week, that would be okay. Like I remember thinking like that would be okay, right? I know it's laughable, but like that was low numbers for me. I at that point already had been on TikTok for about close to a year, and obviously my Instagram was around 100,000 already. So when I'm thinking 1,000 views, I'm thinking that's small from the landscape of I've had TikToks go 40 million views. What was the one line that I kept using? I wouldn't date a thing like that,
Yeah.
right? That had already happened for me.
Yep.
Like I was big and all over the place at that point.
You're big in Asia at that point.
Yeah. Trending all over the place in weird ways for no apparent reason.
Yep.
So when I was thinking 1,000 views in a week, yeah, I could be okay with that.
Yep.
And then you're like, oh, that's not actually a thing.
Yeah, no, that's nowhere near it.
And we need to be okay with much less.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons that people have such discouragement in it, because if you're not doing it to enjoy it, it's a lot of work. You don't get a lot of traction for a long time. Like a lot of people don't want to invest their time in something that people aren't like the people that are doing it aren't investing their time. Because like you see this all the time. I've got countless podcasts on my phone that started and then they just stopped.
Yeah, I was listening to one I was getting kind of invested in. It was Real Talk Piercing. And
Yeah.
it was a young piercer who was kind of talking to more professional piercers than himself.
Yeah.
Not that he wasn't a professional, but these were people who would have been masters to him.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
weren't,
Yeah.
but they could have been his master kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really enjoying it, especially because I was trying to learn how to be a piercer here. I found his journey interesting enough to follow along with. But it just kind of ended.
Yeah.
There was no last episode. It was just over.
Well, people aren't happy doing the thing for the love of the game anymore. You know what I mean? It's like the idea that wealth comes with anything you attempt. It's like, well, that's not why we're doing it. We didn't think we were going to make a ton of money doing it. It's like, if we didn't enjoy doing it every week, there's no way we're going to keep doing it.
Right. If we
Right.
wanted to make more money, theoretically, all we would do is just
Work an extra couple hours a week.
Well, that
You really want to make extra money? There
yeah,
you go.
you get a second job
Yeah.
sooner. But if you wanted to, even in the landscape of YouTube, make more money, it would be more Remy Reacts, less podcast.
Well, I'm more like
More
giving away a
vlogs.
car kind of nonsense.
Well, for sure, but
Giveaways,
like
unfortunately.
within our wheelhouse,
Yeah,
it would
yeah,
be of things we're already doing. You wouldn't be doing 4 podcasts a week.
No.
Can you imagine being like, well, you didn't like the Remy Show at 1 a week?
Yeah, that 2-hour-long podcast that you can hang in for about 20 minutes of.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do 4 of those.
We're going to do 4 of those with the same guys. And guess what? They're not having any more life in that period.
No, in fact, they're having a little less because this is what they're
busy
doing.
podcasting.
Yeah, good luck getting
Yeah,
through that.
the 4-a-week podcasts have like crazy guests with all these
Yeah.
crazy different fields of research and study and expertise.
Yeah,
You'd
no.
have to have rotating guests to do that.
Yeah, otherwise it'd be a nightmare.
Although
Well,
there
here's
are some
3 dudes with
podcasts
normal-ass
that
lives.
you're just like, it's just these 2 dudes forever.
Yeah.
And they
I
don't
mean-
have anything new to say.
At the same time,
And they're on more than once a week.
I mean, sometimes people like that stuff though, like your
Why?
drive to work
Well,
radio
I
show
actually,
thing. That was
no,
a thing.
Not why. I do understand. You get used to a certain thing. It becomes almost like white noise.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it. I'm not
we
our
talked
target
about that.
audience. I listened to, so it would have been back in probably January. I listened to a couple of our episodes. I was like, I'm going to start listening to all of our podcasts. And I haven't listened to any since then.
Yeah.
See, I have listened to all of them,
Good. Someone's got to do it.
but only once. I think I listened to the first few more than once because I was critiquing myself. I was like, oh, I don't want to. I click when I talk sometimes. like when I end a note, it'll be like that kind of thing. And I was like, I need to not do that. But that's when I was trying to be, like we said on our first podcast, we were very, very tight laced, and I think we were both like this. Like we were
Just
sitting
nervous.
like this, both of us, and we
remember
were
the whole
looking
time.
directly at one another.
That's what I was gonna say. Remember my first podcast with you? I had
Locked
this,
in,
I had
like
this
we're
impression I was
fighting.
trying to like open up to the camera a little more, and then I'd look over and you're staring right at me. I was like, oh, this is what we're doing now. We're making intense eye contact and having a very immediate conversation. It's all happening right
And
now.
it's not just immediate, but it's pressing concern.
Yeah.
right? Like if I don't talk to this guy right now,
Something
I
bad's
might
gonna
die. Yeah,
This is urgent.
Yeah.
this has to happen, and I don't want to. I don't want to talk to this guy. I have to.
I
It's
understand
not
why.
a want, it's a need.
I understand why Rogan makes says everybody should do a podcast because like
I don't, because not everyone should.
no, definitely, but like you should attempt it to fail at it to
To
make it
realize
so.
what this is.
Yeah, it's a steep learning curve. You have to do a lot of self-reflection. You have to kind of, I don't know.
I don't know
change-
if I had to do a lot of self-reflection.
I think most people would though.
Something similar could be accomplished by
You
some
would.
public speaking.
You're actually right.
Public speaking.
I think
'Cause,
I think people would get more from public speaking. This is way less pressure than public speaking.
Yeah.
But still, similar things are accomplished.
Well, you have some things like therapy within a podcast,
Yeah.
right? Because you'll be reflecting within the conversation on things that you've done and
Yeah.
things that you've said, and you'll, at the end of it, if you don't know yourself that well to begin with, you'll start losing, or you'll start. I'm starting
What
to
are we
lose.
saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are we going?
No, I know where we're going,
But you know where
but
we were.
I'm definitely losing where we're going.
That's great.
And watching this back will be much funnier now.
Yeah.
'Cause now we're starting to get there.
Yeah, 100%.
But no, there are some things like therapy employed within a podcast for sure.
yeah,
Because the direction that you'll go in with that
yeah.
is sometimes different than you even expected.
Agreed.
It's
Like-
weird how we don't spend much time talking about ourselves and our personal experience so much, but it's still quite personal.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
It depends on the episode, though. Mm-hmm. Definitely depends on the episode. Because sometimes I'll talk more about my own life, and sometimes you'll talk more about your life, right?
But usually just within the context of whatever topic it is. Like we're talking about, Instagram things, for example. Then we'll be talking about how that fits into our lives. But there's not that often where we're actually talking about ourselves and our intentions, goals, strengths, weaknesses, etc.
Yeah, I never talk about myself.
Yeah, you are very introverted.
Yeah.
It's come out throughout the podcast
Yep.
that if anyone's watching as intently as I am, because I'm watching this show as a viewer, not just as a creator. Mm-hmm. Like, because I'm watching it going, oh, I haven't seen the new Remy Show yet. What I've become aware of is that Kevin doesn't open up as much about Kevin as
No.
Scott or Remy does.
Yeah, definitely not.
And I think that that's just a part of you as a person.
I think the three people in this room should always speak about themselves in the third person from now on.
Kevin agrees.
I like this. I like this new look.
Well, no, but
Or sorry, Scott likes this new
Thank
look.
you.
as yeah.
Otherwise, I have
Scott
no idea what's going
Remy
I
on.
couldn't follow
agrees.
through my own
Otherwise,
joke.
Kevin is so lost.
But where was I going with
I
that?
have no idea. That's okay.
No, Scott is more extroverted in general. We talked about this on the podcast, just the two of us.
My nature is gregarious, I would say.
You are a bit more out there to begin with.
It's a t-shirt.
Not just gregarious, I do say.
Yeah, I do say.
I do say at the end.
Yep.
Where I'm really very introverted, but within social media, you're forced to become more extroverted.
Mm-hmm.
So what's playing out is more of who I actually am, but in a way that can be used socially, if that makes sense.
That's actually pretty funny. That's if we're gonna make this
because it's not that social.
a lot of this is a commentary on the social media aspect of things. It's funny that someone like me who is typically quite gregarious, I'll leave my phone there and forget all about the social media and screw around. You as an introvert, you will spend a little more time alone, and you'll spend more time with that.
Yeah.
And you'll have that as an outlet, and through a normal lens, we'll seem one way, and through the lens of the online community, we'll seem complete opposites.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And I think I've used it almost like a superpower because I've become very good at it. Like any video game that you would play, you get to the end of it or whatever, you get to a very high level just by putting time into it and investment into it and learning the nuances of that game. Right? That's what social media became. It was almost like an adult video game for me, like something you would play.
The Sims.
The same way you would as a kid, but
now.
now as an adult. And the rewards are more real world than they are in a video game.
They can be.
They can be if you know how to use them.
Yeah.
Says
right?
the guy on a podcast.
Says the guy on a podcast. Well, say Remy never got past 1,000 followers. This podcast wouldn't probably have ever existed.
I wouldn't suspect, no.
No, we wouldn't have seemed to have it.
Well, who the hell would we be talking to? Like, imagine, because when we started this, we were at 100,000, or I was at 100,000 followers.
Yeah.
Now imagine if you shrink that down to 1,000 followers, and then you're only going to get so many of those followers to come watch the first one.
Well, it becomes like, then it's like, are you talking to your friends and family? Like,
You're putting
I
a
don't even
very
think they're
small
listening.
hook in the water.
no, I because like,
All of a sudden, it's us and the monkey.
yeah, pretty well. It's okay though. I like that.
And if Scott doesn't feel like watching our last episode, we're really hooped.
Yeah.
I would,
Because now we're
mean,
calling Scott like,
I'd still
have
make
you
that
watched
podcast.
the last Remy Show?
We're missing that fourth view.
Yeah, exactly. It's an elite club now.
Sorry, guys.
And we really all have to show up, or else what are we doing here? So if you don't like it, and I don't like it, and Kevin sure as fuck doesn't like it.
Well, and that's what most people doing this would be in that realm, right?
Exactly.
Because like, how do you, if you can't market if you can't market it, then it's not going to
can't
get out
market it.
anywhere.
I
Turns
can't
out most of
market
our
it.
views are Remy's
hard.
or Kevin's mom just streaming the podcast on repeat in the background.
I'll tell you what.
Highly doubt that.
If I was a podcast
My mom can never know about
guy,
this
like
podcast.
producing, if
Yeah,
I
your
was
mom would
selling
be.
She's
you,
way too Josephus.
if I was selling you a podcast, I would have a hard time selling you this one, but I would have a much harder time selling you this one with 1,000 followers backing
yeah, of
it.
course.
But in
You
this
know?
room, Kevin's a salesman anyway, so we'll leave
Yeah,
that up
it's
to
fine.
him. Yeah.
I can handle it.
He's like, I can't sell this shit.
No, not really. It's
No.
got to sell itself, otherwise it's no point.
That's fair.
Plus, like, that's kind of the cool thing about doing it is like, yeah, if you're listening and you like it, sweet. If you don't, that's cool too.
Here's what I know. We're holding on to this podcast topic like it's a lifeline.
Yeah, I know. It's weird.
I think it's...
If we lose this, we've lost everything.
can we say it?
What? Which part?
That it's
You
mushrooms.
can say it whenever
No.
you want. I'm sure by
You
now
can.
someone's figured out something's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Because
50.
right now I'm like, I feel like this discombobulation should be explained. like,
Yeah, it's a little far
For
in.
no
though.
reason should it be explained. It was great.
yes.
Live in mystery. Don't ruin
You're
that.
probably a little less discombobulated than Scott and myself.
Sure. I'm more familiar with it. And
Yes,
yes.
more familiar with it. Yes,
Yep.
it's a good way to put it.
This is a good way of celebrating our 50th.
Another part of Kevin's unique vantage point is that most mornings he's sitting with us, he's had a little.
Yeah. That's the thing. This is like
and
this
if
is
you
kind of my
dose.
normal running.
And
Like,
if-
this might
and
be
if you
unique for you
haven't, I
guys, but
can
I'm just
tell.
like, all right,
It's like we had a guy.
podcast again.
We had a guy at work one time who was just a terrible, terrible bastard to work with if he wasn't stoned.
Right.
So one time I had to take him outside and be like, "Hey, Matt, I know you. Could you please? Because you're a real fucking prick right now. I don't want to deal with you much longer than this.
Yeah.
So please." And then he did, and he was chill.
Well, that's because he's going through withdrawal.
Yeah, well, he
That's
was also a
legitimately
guy
what
who could
happens.
barely get out of bed without a drink in the morning anymore.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But like he had it bad for liquor and pot.
Yeah.
So it was one of those. If he didn't have either in his system, you could tell right away, and it was going to be your problem.
yeah.
Yeah, because
You know
if
what
you
I
don't
mean?
have like if you're constantly using a nervous system depressant and then you remove that depressant, it's like taking a warm blanket off of you in an icy cool morning.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. So,
Yeah. He was a nightmare to deal with when he wasn't stoned.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
So
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, that was my my ex that I've talked about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The one I was with twice. She self-medicated with pot, but she over-medicated.
Yeah.
So, in other words, she was a lot better off when she was stoned. But if you left it up to her, she's doing nothing but that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like there was no end to that route.
Yeah.
Like, where if she had a job or something that would have taken her away from that, then maybe it could have been a nice treat at the end of the day or something like that.
And like,
Whereas she just slept in a bed of it.
this is coming back to like the
Well, it's true.
I'm picturing this like
We bought-
closed glass chamber where she's in a hot boxed.
No,
Man,
so we
that
had a
is-
friend. We had a friend
Ooh.
that gave.
unicorn.
We got a
Yeah, I was gonna
$600.
say.
We got a $600 supply of pot for like $250.
Oh, great.
And it was like an investment almost because and the way she sold it to me was like, oh well, this way
We'll save so
money.
much money buying a ton of pot.
She ended up smoking through what she would have smoked,
Of course.
in a few weeks, in a
'Cause it's
few
there.
days.
Yeah.
and I was the only income.
Yeah.
So I was like, you're telling me you spent how much money
Yeah.
in this amount of time?
A month's
I
worth
can't
of pot?
sustain this.
In 2 weeks, she smoked 3 days of your labor.
Well,
You're
the
like,
problem is, like,
excuse me.
I think you're at
I
a
was
point
like, how
where
are we going to sustain this?
yeah, well, yeah. Well, you get to a point where it's not actually doing anything.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just the
Dimin-
like, you
diminish
have it,
damage
so
on your
you-
lungs more.
You do it because it's there, and you think
It's
that
available.
you think that you'll get high, but you won't because you're smoking
already-
so much of
yeah.
it that you're not going to actually be able to feel
It's
the
a
effects of it.
saturation point thing.
And you never take a day off, so your body can't reset its cannabinoid receptor. Like all those things where it's like we could use substances wisely, and we don't.
We could use substances wisely.
Are we
but
using them
nah.
wisely now?
Currently,
Yeah.
in this room,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah?
I would say so.
I would say so. But like,
Is this how you would intend them to be used?
yeah,
Really?
A small, reasonable dose.
yeah.
So, like, I'm not saying that that's the wrong way, but I think that a clinical way to go about it would probably be a little more.
So that said, we've been watching some podcasts lately on using psychedelics for therapy, and they're administering. So they're
more instructive
They're
is where I
using
wanted
this
to go
more
with
like
that.
condensed version that's like 0.5 gram total substance, but it's comparable to 5.5 grams of psilocybin. So like the trips they're taking people on for their transformative experience is way more
Oh, yeah,
than
yeah.
our current experience.
Yeah. This is nothing compared to
Yeah.
what they're.
Oh,
what
yeah,
the
they would have to
clinical
make it
environment.
more-
But the thing that's weird about the clinical environment right now is all of their research is done with large macrodose. It's a heavy experience because like the whole idea of it, of what they have the license to do research around, is with these large doses rather than continued use. Right?
Yeah, like more of a one-off experience.
Yeah. So you have to give someone a considerable amount of anything in order to make it so that they have a transformative experience, right?
For that one afternoon of their life to change them forever.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
which
like,
Is obvious when you think about it that way.
So
Yeah, I
how
know.
much would you say it would take
to do what?
to do a transformative experience?
For me, a transformative experience.
Not for you.
But I'm just as an explanation of
yeah,
of
for
the
you.
descriptor,
We
right?
get it. You're on them all the time.
But as a
I'm not
descriptor,
saying
it was the
Kevin.
first day that I tried a microdose
Yeah.
was transformative for me. The very first day, and it was maybe like,
Really?
oh yeah, maybe like 0.3 grams.
I
Like
guess it would
maybe
depend
maybe
on-
less, probably 30 milligrams or something like that was the first
But again,
microdose
that's
I did.
That's not a good judge either, because each person is different.
Yes, exactly. And that's the hard thing with a microdose, is it's so specific to a person. But for me, in terms of what it did for opening neural pathways and stuff like that, as soon as I had taken it, not as soon as, but whenever it kicked in, it was one of those the mild amount was enough for me to look at normal situations differently, and that was enough to be transformative.
Well,
And
I
still
guess it would
see your
depend on
normal-
how much you
Yeah.
were mired down previously.
Yeah.
So someone who is already kind of on that plane to some degree.
And I knew to take note of it. I knew to watch it. I wasn't using it for partying or anything like that. It was for this particular experience. So, whereas like if you take a large dose I think that one of the reasons that they like the idea of a large dose is it comes with a lot of drama. If you do a large dose of psilocybin, you can do hallucinations, you can do blah, 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 blah. Like the overall scope of things is a lot more big. It's a lot more showy.
Yeah.
Whereas like a microdose, I think, is a lot harder to market to people.
You feel kind of weird.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, and you like...
For a little while, I felt strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
take note of things differently. You look at the sunset and you're like, man, that's nice.
Yeah.
You go, I wonder how trees work. Like, it's just this, like, little tiny addition, which is really hard to...
It depends, too, though, whether you're doing it with people or on your own.
100%.
So if I'm
I would
sitting
always
here,
recommend on your own.
But if I'm sitting here and I've taken the same amount, but I'm on my own, I'm even in the exact same spot. You don't even have to put me anywhere else.
Yep.
I'm having a different experience than if I'm talking to Scott and Kevin.
Yeah.
I'm also having a different experience than if I'm sitting with two other people, right? And you can map that out as far as you want.
Yeah.
You can
Set and
change
setting,
those
man.
people over and over again, and it keeps being a different experience.
Yeah.
So
You can sit us in a different time and it's a different experience. That's the interesting thing about it.
As
Are
I
we
said the
trying to say
last
we're gonna
time.
put the mics outside right now?
Maybe. I wish we did
No,
podcast outside.
no, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is it's been, for me, I think either 12 or 13 years.
Yeah.
And the last time I did psilocybin, I was thinking, I'm doing this as a precursor to DMT.
Wow.
Well, there is no,
sure.
but there's orders of magnitude.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's hard to make that smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to take smaller steps.
No,
You know
I
what I mean?
completely agree. It
Like-
seems like the hierarchy goes a certain way, right? But the weirdest thing about it is DMT, you dream every night.
Yeah, we
So
have
it's
it
like,
in us.
It's like it seems scary and it seems Mount Everesty, but you just don't have the comfort of sleep.
Yeah, exactly. We're waking through
Yeah.
what we normally wouldn't be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The conscious mind is saying, I don't have control or territory here,
Yeah.
and I'm not okay with that.
And sleep, you love that.
My
you lean into dreams, but in wakefulness, you want control.
as a young, I'd say up until I was 18, I started doubting it. But when I was being raised, it was with pot is bad. Like that was kind of
Yeah.
the right. That was the law of the land in my house.
it's a
Till a
drug
couple
and
years
drugs
ago.
are bad.
Well,
Yeah.
but I left home pretty early because everything was bad. Like everything that was different was kind of bad. So I didn't break free of that stigma for quite a while, though,
Yeah, that's fair.
where it was like when I did come around to drugs are okay, it was more for me personally. It would be like as an avenue to change myself, further my own mind, rather than I want to feel this thing that seems cool or
Yeah.
whatever, right? I liked the idea of opening up new pathways that I couldn't consider before.
Enhancing your life
Yeah,
rather than it detracting from it.
not the party mentality. Like,
No.
I'm not a big fan of that aspect of it. It's not that it's bad, it just was never useful for me. Everything I want to do is got to be beneficial in some way from me, and it's something that I could keep with me later. Right? So, like, if I take this once, perhaps it will help me always. Like, that's kind of my whole mentality towards everything.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I
but
look
you do
forward.
it every day.
Well, a
right?
microdose is not something you really notice.
Exactly.
And like
Smaller.
The intentions are the same.
But this is where
Yes.
I was
you know,
saying.
you're still using a substance with a similar intention
Yeah.
as if it was a larger dose. You're still walking into it going, there's a reason for this, and it's not simply the experiential momentary aspect. You're still looking at the bigger picture, the same as his viewpoint is overall.
yeah.
But my viewpoint is more akin to what you were talking about giving someone a very strong dose.
Yes.
So at what point does that deviate, though? Like, how small the dose every day? How much?
I think it depends on your thinking. I think like your rigidity of thinking, I think, can challenge those things in terms of like what dose would be good for whatever. Like, I just think that when they're talking about the large versions of these things, like once you get past 5 grams with most psilocybins, it's like, well, there's no ignoring it. I don't care. I don't care who you are. it's gonna be a time.
Even if you're very proficient at it.
Yes.
Yeah, I do it all the time, and even most small doses, I'm like, yeah, I can't ignore this.
No.
This is still right here.
No, it takes priority for sure.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things that I find kind of like you can use these things. You don't have to go crazy with it. You don't have to go super intense in order to gain benefit from it. If benefit is what you're looking for, right? If you're looking for a good time, all right, that's fine. But if you're looking to help it, like with your life, like encourage your life in some way, shape, or form, like what we're doing this evening is encouraging conversation.
Yeah, it's definitely a different conversation
Yes.
than it would have been.
Exactly. And that's utilizing
Complete
it for
with different nervous tics. And
energy.
twinges.
Even the energy is just different.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
guess is we're talking considerably faster.
Well,
wonder,
that's
eh?
what it feels like, but it may not be.
Well, it's also because your brain is
Because there's a
able to-
point where I'm like, wow, Scott is talking really fast, but is he actually?
yeah,
I mean, usually, yeah.
Scott's a
Just
fast
in
talker.
general.
Oh, that's the thing. That's why it's a trick. Because it's like, wow, that guy's talking faster than normal, but Scott talks faster than normal
Yeah.
normally.
That's right.
So is it a personality quirk or is it an effect of the substance? At that
Probably
point?
a bit of both.
Something
Or as
that you
time started
probably
moving differently.
well,
That we would need to
Dot,
do a
dot,
lot more
dot.
in order to have that happen.
it definitely our perception of time is moving differently.
Sure.
But time itself, I guess though, time is a concept that if you weren't there, how do you even know, right?
Yeah.
So,
Where's time when you're sleeping?
yeah. Great point.
Yeah.
There's a time when that might be the moment of the podcast for me when I'm watching this later. Where is time when you're asleep?
Yeah. It's all our perception of it, unfortunately. Like, even though it's not, but since we have limited experience, a limited lens of experience would be our eyes right now, right? It's one of those things that it's difficult because time is only in relation to our own ego. That's why, like, when you do something like a mushroom, if you do a large amount of it and you actually do lose your perception of time and place, then all of a sudden you, that's when those really transformative things can happen because your ego gets to take a back seat.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So it only really goes out the window once you've gone deep enough
Yes.
that your ego really
So-
only has the loosest grasp or isn't even present at all anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, just because, like, I think if you're not, and that's probably one of the reasons that they rely on large doses because you need that ego disillusionment from
Yeah.
time to time for certain things that just ideas of yourself that you've been holding on to. If all of a sudden yourself is not in the equation, then you can start to let go of those things.
Meanwhile, the dose we're on now, it's not current in my mind, but I can still think of, I need to be in bed at a certain time to
Yep.
get up for my tattoo tomorrow. I need to do this.
Yeah.
I can still be aware of
But
the
could
concerns
you do
of the
those
ego.
things right now?
I mean,
Tattooing safely on
if I
mushrooms.
tried real hard, I bet I could.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot of like,
A lot of weird mushroom yawns.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fine.
Fair enough. I guess it would also be more like, oh, I'm in this mode of thinking now. I've been here before.
That's exactly right.
I know how to do these things when I'm in this mode of thinking.
Yeah.
Right? It becomes almost like a phase shift, right? Where you're a different part of you now,
Yeah.
and you've used this in these ways before. Whereas if it was your first time, you'd be like, well, how am I going to do this?
Yeah. I'm not going to get over this hurdle.
Unfortunately, there aren't going to be too many times where you're tattooing on mushrooms to get used to that. I would hope.
I hope not.
Come on, man.
You're
The
like,
future's-
wow, that's what
future's
you
bright.
think.
It's a weird future.
Let me tell you about this time when I was doing this thing in Jamaica.
Tattooing on mushrooms in Jamaica.
Tattooing a mushroom's not a habit I've ever formed. I don't think I've ever gotten too much up to that.
No,
So
I feel
how
like
do
it'd
you
be very
become
uncomfortable.
proficient at it?
Well,
Now
yeah.
I only tattoo on mushrooms.
You start like Kevin does, one little microdose at a time.
yeah, fair
Yeah.
enough.
Here we
It's
go.
important. You're building a house, man.
We're from the bottom
So
up
this
here.
is what it was all for.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that you could one day become proficient tattooing on mushrooms.
Performance tattooing. It's just
Yeah,
Kevin
it's
eating
right
3
there.
grams of mushrooms.
Well, we've seen,
go.
we've reacted to some of that performance tattooing.
Yep, exactly. Well, I
That would
tell
be
people that
bold.
all the time now.
Which?
I'll tell him about the performance tattooing.
It's so wild.
The whole
The
like
bicycle tattooer?
Oh,
yeah, the bicycle tattooer. That's the one that gets me.
Like,
It's too sweet.
Cello.
I just don't understand that it's expanding.
It's a tattoo machine on a cello.
I've seen more people doing it now, and that's a whole corner of the world that, again, I don't understand.
Yeah, we're in the corner again.
Don't worry, Grandma sees it as the exact same.
Yeah,
I know.
Grandma sees a regular day at Rocky Mountain as here's a cello player, cellist.
One step closer to Satan is how Grandma sees it.
Yeah, but she can't tell the difference in comedy either.
No.
So she's missing out on not just the severity or the change of scenery.
Mm-hmm.
She's missing out on the whole
The
comedy
thing
of
that
it.
changes is the tone with which she's like, "Look what these kids are doing."
Right?
Yeah, man, it blows my mind. Like it makes me. It's kind of sad because I feel like tattooing. I feel like that's kind of mocking tattooing in some way.
Yeah, because tattooing is so wholesome. Like yesterday,
Well, we become so used to it.
yeah.
And it just kind of makes it a spectacle, whereas like it's already a spectacle. Let it be a spectacle. You
No,
don't have to like
we're
put
in
it
the-
through this other mockery.
Well,
to
you
it.
could call that me. You could call me that, right?
Sure, I guess I'm
'Cause
just
I-
defining which version of it I like.
Exactly. Anything in its extremes or its variations can
Yeah.
be
Viewed
a
in
bit-
whatever way.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get into that, eh? Get into
Oh,
the
yeah.
point where you're like, well, no, my lane makes sense, but that lane, that's bullshit. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
catch myself doing that shit all the time, where I'm ragging on some other lane, some other topic of something that's very parallel to me.
Yeah.
And going, oh, wait a second.
As
If
long
I
as
was
it's
over there,
external.
I'd be looking
Yeah.
at what I
It's
do.
always
like if I'm
easier to
crazy.
point out the flaws and make fun of things that are external.
That's
Because
right.
then you don't have to, oh, wait, that's me.
Yeah.
What I'm doing makes sense. What they're doing,
Absolutely
crazy.
not.
Out to lunch.
Yeah, but this is again where I kind of push for this type of substance will make you take note of those types of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're thinking about a psilocybin or anything within that
What
realm.
does it do to you if you're already in that realm? Like if you already kind of think those things anyway,
Just softens you.
does it soften you?
Yeah.
You think
Just
so?
keeps the openness keeping on. You know what I mean? Would
Yeah.
be the best way I would look
Well,
at it.
I
'Cause
can
if you're
always
already
tell when you haven't.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, you're more, I don't want to say bitchy,
Yeah, fair.
but irritable. I guess irritable would be the way I would put it.
Okay.
Have you ever
fair.
looked at
I also
the-
probably have terrible things going on in my life at that point
No,
too.
I
Just
understand.
the whole world I kind of
Well,
hate.
you're like,
But
I
I
can't
can.
do
I,
mushrooms
there's
right now,
a
I'm not ready
distinct.
for
There's
it.
a distinct difference to me, and I've even noted it when I'll come in. I'll be like, "Huh, Kevin didn't do his thing today.
Oh. Well, see, now that just makes me feel like I need to stop it.
Why?"
Because, like, I should be able to have that similar same state of mind no matter what I've got.
I think everybody has
You just use the should
things
word.
that they need.
Should. Yeah. Prescriptive to myself in that respect.
I think everybody has things that they need and that they're using to medicate with,
Yeah.
and they're all different. So, like, say somebody really loves playing WoW, but now they can't. Well, obviously they have an addiction to that, right? But it's upset them, and the rest of the world won't know,
Right.
right? Like, I take it with me always. This person doesn't understand that I'm without my thing right now,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like, if I haven't been tattooed for 3 weeks,
Yeah. You get a little squirrely.
I get squirrely in ways you probably wouldn't make sense to other people. Like, it makes me feel depressed.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? Why can't I figure this out? Like, I get really down in the dumps. But I also take with me through that knowledge that no one else realizes that.
Yeah. Of course.
Like,
Right.
no one else is going to be aware of what I'm doing right now. The fact that I haven't been tattooed. Look at me. I'm fully covered. Like, no one's going to think, oh, this guy's depressed because he hasn't been tattooed in a while. They think that I'm getting tattooed every night.
Again, what Grandma thinks.
or
with
that
the
you've
corner.
only been tattooed once.
Or that I've only been tattooed once.
Yeah.
So, like, you take with you that knowledge of no one else in the world knows that.
One bodysuit, please.
I don't think.
I know that without psilocybin
Yeah. Of course.
because I can detach from myself enough where I'm like, I'm piloting this person to some degree.
Well, but that type of viewpoint is not common.
That sounds like the illusion of the illusion.
Are we going to get into that?
I hope not.
I don't think we can handle
free
that.
will.
Please don't take us there.
Not into free will. No, what I mean is that most people don't have that framework. That's one of the reasons that I think psilocybin would be beneficial, is because it helps people come to terms with that.
I seen a great meme the other day that kind of carries here. It's not a meme, it's a quote that we're all born geniuses and we all die, we're all buried fools, right? So I don't know if it's that we aren't all in that framework. It's that maybe we don't nurture that enough.
I think that's a pretty dangerous way to view life. It's like, instead of spending your whole life trying to move forward, you're spending your whole life trying to watch out for not moving backwards.
Well, I think
like, 'cause I'm just gonna go through my whole life
I'm going backwards
to make as little of a fool of myself as possible.
Well, I think more it's playing on the notion that when you're born, you have potential.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what.
When you die, you have regret. Right?
Okay.
Like this idea of you have all the possibilities when you're born.
Well, and the
then
world
when
imposes
you're
limitation.
Dying, you've done it, right? And you're a fool because you didn't live your life the way that you wanted to. I think just that's like the I was reading that book about psychedelics throughout history within different religions and things like that. And in the Greek, the oldest religion we know of, they had a saying with their psychedelic ceremony, which was that you need to die before you die, so you don't die when you die. The idea that they have to do these psychedelic ceremonies to let the ego die.
Kind of what you mean.
Well, it was the idea of touching death without dying, right?
Right.
This idea of ego death. They did a lot of psychedelic stuff, basically LSDs, in these ceremonies once a year to keep themselves at a place where they've talked to death, they've touched death, and they can continue on their life afterwards.
Well, it intuits, because in my own way, I've died several times. And because I tend to think of death as not necessarily when you breathe your last breath, but when you end things with a person.
Sure.
When you can't do this thing again, right? When this is the last time you will ever experience this.
Yeah.
That's a death. And yes, true, when someone doesn't die, they just left you. You could technically speak to them again, but it wouldn't be the same conversation.
Something has changed.
That relationship has died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually went through that with my grandparents. When
I was gonna say, get your mic a little closer.
That mic,
You're
boy.
doing that thing.
So when I had a phone, there was one phone conversation where I spoke to them, and I heard my grandma. She's like, "Oh, hi. I think you should talk to your grandfather." And I was like, "Okay." And then he kind of came on, "Hey, yeah, your recent life decisions, recent life directions, obviously over the religion thing."
Yeah.
And when I realized that relationship was changing, I went through a definite period of alcoholism and substance abuse, because they had kind of died to me. That they weren't dead. I could still reach out to them.
It would
sort
be
of,
the same.
but that relationship is dead.
Yeah,
and
Scott's
it's not coming
relationship to grandma is now different.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Grandpa.
It's gone.
Yeah, my relationship to most of my relationships of my past are entirely different. Because I'm a very different human. Well, I just went out.
This was a very specific turning point, because it was so rich and so full and such an important part of my life, and then now in a moment it was turned on its head.
Yes.
Due to one change in my life, right?
This is where I have a theory that is very unpopular.
Okay.
From everyone that I've told it to, which is there is no unconditional love.
Of course not.
But people have such a hard problem with
I'm
that.
the first person to admit that to
I
you.
knew you would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one.
I knew everyone in this room would be fine with that concept, but just everyone I've ever told it.
Yeah. Well, they want to imagine that their mom will accept them no matter what.
Yeah, I know.
Turns out,
I've gone through
once you
that
change your religion,
understanding being not the case. You know what I mean?
It doesn't have to be religion related.
Yeah, no.
We're in the extremes anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be as much as one tattoo has changed everything.
Yeah.
right?
It could be because you didn't go to Thanksgiving. Like
Yeah.
people have weird conditions in their relationships with people.
Yeah,
These
yeah. All of
weird
a sudden,
expectations and these.
if Scott wears a different hat,
Yeah,
he's
then
not
we're
welcome.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not welcome here.
If you don't find those glasses you lost,
There's conditional love.
I'm picturing what hat I could wear that would
Well,
disassociate
look,
me
no,
from my
I'll give you
peers.
I'll give you that scenario because I do have one.
really,
If all of
You
a
own
sudden
that hat?
it's the hat of another tattoo shop.
that'd be hilarious.
Well, no,
Snake
because
skin
we already know that there are
Remy Show
tattoo.
is
Well,
better
not
here.
ironically.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
know,
like
I
say
know.
your direct competition hat,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And you're wearing it proudly while you're here, and it's not ironically. It's
Yeah.
not as a joke or taking the piss. It's no, I really like those guys. I think they're doing the best work in town.
Yeah, I
You know what I
I
mean?
think that
like
might be
it's-
tolerated. I think Kevin would find that funny.
No,
Oh,
because
it would
it's
be
not
funny, yeah.
ironic though.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Right.
say Scott's not saying that as a joke. He's not saying
You're
that-
saying displaying an anti-tribe.
yeah.
Well, now if I went to work there overnight,
That'd be different.
That'd be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like what I'm getting at is there's conditional love, right?
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Because like
Yeah, of course.
it wouldn't be the same as wearing a Rocky Mountain hat.
Yeah.
Nah.
It wouldn't be the same thing.
I just find it.
That's all you need to
interesting-
know, that there's conditions.
I just find it interesting that like people really want to believe in the idea of it, which I totally understand. I get it, but
Well,
at the
'cause
same
Disney-
time,
Disney beat it into them
yeah,
over the years.
Well, it's
our,
not
higher-
even just
our
that.
stories are entirely that. It's this like rose-colored glasses thing. But at the same time, you still talk to people, and then you go, if you posit a certain situation within whatever relationship you have, well, and then cross their line. In which case, you have a condition.
yeah,
It's not
exactly.
unconditional. I'm sorry, you
Exactly.
just can't get there. We're not built for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're
Well,
as
in
animals,
need.
we're not built to do
We're a
that.
need.
We're still
function,
individuals.
right? If I
No.
need something, that's going to take precedent.
I don't think it's bad to think like to use that as aspirational though. The idea of getting to a place of health or stability or certain or like
But-
knowing oneself to know that other people's
We get
other
into
people's lines that they
we
cross
get into
is not a condition
really
for you.
really tricky territory though when you start mapping that onto people's intentions.
Of course.
And then also mapping out farther to the people who use those sorts of conditions
Yeah, yeah.
better than others.
Yeah.
That's where your argument starts to lose popularity, is it starts making certain people look more nefarious than others.
Sure.
Right? People in positions of power over love.
Yeah.
Right? So certain people will have less control within that landscape than others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it starts to get a little ugly.
Well, I think we also just don't have understanding of what it takes for us to love ourselves, because we still have those conditions within ourselves. Like our if ourselves are doing
Yeah.
things that we don't like, we will not love us, right?
Right.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
like if I'm underperforming as a me, and I know me,
You can
and-
disown yourself.
Yes,
I've done it.
I've done it. Like
Yeah.
I was depressed for a long time, and every time I get into bad patterns, I look at myself negatively. I look at myself with this like I missed the mark of earning my conditions.
I'd say you can do it even on a smaller scale than that.
Totally.
You can disown yourself without being conscious of it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You can disown yourself for you can say it's disowning yourself for wearing a shirt of a brand you don't love.
okay.
Well, that critical voice in our head is always beating. Is
Yeah,
always
no,
trying to
it's-
beat us up
it's true, though.
for.
Well, for me, it's
any
like
little bullshit.
if I
It
was
doesn't
wearing
have to
something
be-
with a brand, then I would be.
But
I
it
would
doesn't
be, I would
have
be
to
bummed.
be.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I'm
If it wasn't-
using a bad example, but it doesn't have to be anything grand.
Yeah.
Like this is how we cannot be okay with ourselves doing certain things,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
All of a sudden, it's not just the broader world that we're worrying about being unconditional to us. We're unconditional, or we'd like to think we're unconditional to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But if all of a sudden I'm wearing pink, well, that's not good enough, right? Why
Sure.
would I do that?
But this is also like one of those
But it
things
could
that.
just be that was the only shirt around.
Yeah. Nothing
We should
else
wear
was.
some more pink. That'd
Why
be
can't
good.
it be that simple?
Well,
Yeah.
it is if you make it that simple.
Hmm.
But if not, then you've missed your own bar. You know what I mean? But like, why don't we talk about things like that?
So,
You know what I mean?
because I've
Well, because
I've
it's only
I've got it.
interesting to people who are in
I've
this
zoned out and
condition.
missed a lot of this conversation.
I know you
but,
have. Great. You've been doing your own thing. That's
But one of the
fine.
biggest reasons that we're scared to admit that all love is conditional, it's a fear response. Because if we realize that our love toward others is conditional, then we immediately break that fourth wall and realize that others' love toward us is also conditional.
Yeah,
and that's a scary thing, and that puts us into
Well, it makes
a
you
fear
evaluate
state.
yourself and why you've been with certain people,
Mm-hmm.
right? You start going, oh, this person was doing this thing for me all this time, and that's the only reason why I found them interesting. And you start feeling like a monster. If you start picking apart your relationships with people and their intentions, you feel like a monster. You can't not, because it becomes mechanical. And when you get into the interchange of, I do this thing for this person and they do this thing for me, and that's
becomes
why,
all transactional.
See, I
Yeah.
have a friend who thinks like this, and he doesn't see it. He doesn't see that he views things so transactionally, but they'll be explaining to you why you're not a good enough friend to him, and you're like, I think you've got a whole different concept of what a friendship looks like, buddy. Like,
well,
I'm not here for any
you
of
have to get
this.
you
so
can't
many
live
friend
in
points
that
in order-
all the time.
Yeah.
So like when we're tearing apart these layers and just kind of throwing them by the wayside, when you do that, if you live with that active knowledge all the time, you don't want to think of your wife that way.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, that's
Well,
super
but that's-
poisonous to yourself.
That's how a lot of people do have
You
relationships.
can't
though,
live
right?
with the
Like, it's like, you don't take out the trash. You don't do like this scoreboard that you've got in your head of
I can't keep score that way.
no, but I mean, I know you're an
it's
exception
not
to the
recommended
rule.
you do.
Most people operate that way
Why am I an exception to that rule, though?
because you
Maybe
just said
you've-
you don't operate that way.
Also,
If you don't operate that way, that's
Well,
not. the
I- no,
majority
I
of the
don't think
population.
of,
because
like-
you've consciously observed that trait in
Yes.
others and you avoid it.
Yes,
Because
observation is what most people don't do.
That's super huge. Like a lot of people, or by nature, humans tend to notice the negative things and remember those more clearly. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. So it's very common that we observe the negative things and remember that better.
It's like 25-1, right?
Yeah, but then, so once you know that, what do you do with that knowledge? The most important thing you can do with that knowledge is when you catch yourself noticing something you perceive as negative in somebody else, let that slide away and instead notice something positive, right? So you can intentionally because you're in control of your mind. You can intentionally take that bull by the horns and redirect it towards something much more positive and useful for your life.
Well, everybody thinks probably that they're doing it, is the takeaway.
It's
for
not about
me.
thinking you are or not doing it. It's about practicing it,
Yeah.
you know?
But again, these are not the things that are in our common
Language.
conversation.
Yeah.
When you're a kid in school, you don't get talked about with this. You don't get told that you have this
No, we
inner
already
voice and this
discussed
inner
what
dialogue.
we talk about with our kids at school.
Yes.
We don't want to go there
Yes,
again.
we're not going back there.
We got sucked down that rabbit hole of things that they're probably not talking about in school.
But if you do take this kind of society down like a further rabbit hole, where it's like, okay, well, we make things easier and easier for ourselves as we go along, right? So if all of a sudden our jobs start getting taken away and we start getting put into more places where we have more time, we got to start talking about things like this.
Big time.
Because
Things like this conversation we've been having today.
yes.
I don't know how useful this would be unless we were under these effects.
Well,
these
thi-
are like the conversations I have normally.
Well, this
Like,
particular
I just-
conversation
I like
actually
this
is
stuff.
It can be very helpful.
I'm not saying
in
that-
any interhuman relationship.
I'm not saying
Yes.
it's a bad
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Nothing
You're
like
saying
that.
it's being aided currently.
right.
You're right.
Yes.
Well, no,
Under normal circumstances.
Kevin and I regularly have these kind of conversations.
Yes.
Fair enough.
And B,
This is the
like,
majority of what's got done.
let's take Kevin and I as an example. We have a very constant work relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like we share this space for a lot of hours a week, and we see things through very different lenses. So it's pretty important that we take things that can be perceived in the moment as negative, sweep them under the rug, take all the positives, and all of a sudden we have a super net beneficial business relationship interaction here, whatever, where we're not constantly pissing each other. 'Cause we
We just had one the other day.
Yeah,
where
we-
both you and I were like,
we see the worst of each other's sides for sure.
yeah.
I mean, not the worst, but we can see each other's shit pretty clearly, and we can just choose to be like, no, I see this person for all their good shit because we do have a strong track record.
Well, so that is
we
what
bring a lot of
love
strength to the
is to
table.
me anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't mean that it isn't unconditional.
This is getting very personal all of a sudden.
No, it's just
Sorry to take it here.
It's okay.
no. Like you can have a small amount of love.
Yeah.
You can have a large amount of love. I don't know how you scale that, but I certainly love my wife more than I love my job, for example.
Yeah.
I could easier quit my job
Good.
than my wife. No, but
Yep.
you know what I mean?
Yep.
I do have love for both.
Yes.
How do you scale that? That's a tricky thing to scale.
Well, I think it also just depends what you mean by love,
Yeah.
right? Because love can be like we use that one word to describe lots of different situations.
Which is
Like-
another problem with unconditional love.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Love should be unconditional, whatever the fuck that means.
I think love as an essence, that's one thing. But in terms of the other practicalities that can come with love, those things can come into play as well.
Is this where I
Like-
get out my years of Jehovah's Witness training and explain to you the various different types of
that could be useful.
the various ways love was used in the Greek language?
The agapes and such.
Agapes
Yeah.
and logos
Yeah.
and anyway, there's like 5 different kinds.
Yeah, we can do that dance if you want.
No, let's not.
I don't want to.
I would rather.
I hate it all.
Yeah.
I think we'll get lost in that.
It's okay. It's just that's a joke between two religious people.
Bullshit.
Yep.
Yeah, see, I'm missing the inside to that joke
Yeah.
because I'm not inside that.
What, you don't have 20,
We're in
30
a
years
corner.
of-
As far well,
Of
we're not
picking
in a
apart
corner.
this old dead language.
This is actually a little bit surface
Sure.
to people who are in it, but for me, it's a corner.
Yeah, it
'Cause
is.
Oh,
I'm
it's
not-
deep
I've
in the
not
corner.
It's
lived there.
100% a corner.
It's deep
Yeah.
in the corner.
But this,
yeah.
like, this is something that I'm trying to suss out for myself. Is like, I think there's truisms that happen within these places, and we get lost about semantic language within them. So it's like, you have a simple concept of love, this thing that we all seem to be able to understand and experience in one way, shape, or form, and then the language around it is something that we define within our own comfort level, and then we defend it really rigorously, right? Like, even if I just say the idea that there's no unconditional love, that people get defensive about that because the language that they have around this
Well,
thing.
you're tearing down an institution.
But I'm not.
No, I know, but that's the
I know.
idea.
It's hitting a part of us that's kind of foundational.
Yeah.
It's something that we've grown up with. It's something that we've believed. Anytime anytime I say anything contrary or even supplementary to someone's belief, it triggers something that's like really resistant. To
I
it.
understand it as very. It's almost mathematic at
Sure.
that point, right?
Yep.
People don't like things that are that logical.
Yeah.
They don't like
it seems cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like using a blunt force instrument again,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
People want to be romanced, so when you start doing anything but that,
Yeah.
you start taking away the romance. It's very hard to get someone on board with that.
Yeah, it's
Like when I met Sarah, I was very methodically explaining a lot of kind of what would happen. Like, oh yes, I know you're gonna like this thing about me, and this,
yeah, and eventually it'll annoy you.
and we've talked about this on earlier podcasts.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, I knew that wasn't the best approach to courting.
Honesty?
It's not just honesty. It's blunt force. It's like explaining bit by bit what our relationship is going to, almost like I'm puppeteering.
Yeah, you're doing pattern recognition to a point that makes most people uncomfortable.
Yeah, it doesn't seem sexy to me.
It's
to
not.
do that.
It ain't. I'm sorry. It just
Hard
ain't.
sell explaining almost like we're robots.
Well, it becomes a game of chess all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I can see your moves. And it's like, well, that's because it's a game. And people don't like to think of their life as a game. People don't like to think that...
Yeah, gamifying it.
Yeah. Or just anything that removes agency from oneself is scary. Anything that removes... and
Even though seeing your life as a game, wouldn't that be giving yourself agency?
Yeah, it ends up being that way. But since it's something that people don't have a view
People
of,
are scared to have true agency, I think.
it's like anything. Like
We're not
anything
getting
that you
into the
haven't done that you go
of
and
the
do.
illusion
It
of
sure
free
sounds like
will.
we are.
I know. That's where we're headed. with this.
Like anything
illusion
that you
of the
go-
illusion
like,
of free
so
will.
Well, we
we
got
get this
into
all the
this-
time with tattoos, right? Like people get scared of a tattoo because they don't know what to expect, and then they get into it and it's not as bad, or it's just as bad, or it's worse, or whatever it is. But their expectation is not reality, right? And it's the same thing with this type of a thing. It seems bad because you have no idea what it is, and our brain is really good about trying to keep us alive. And if anything is scary, we deviate away from it pretty hard.
A classic known unknown.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Because it's just like, we have no idea, and therefore that's way scarier.
You love the devil you know.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You
'Cause
love
you know
him, right?
You know
This
him.
is the thing.
Yeah.
Love is a very, very weird term.
That's what I'm saying. But I do find
It's
it
such a
strange that...
huge envelope.
Well,
How many
English
attachments?
itself
Like I
is-
said, I love my work.
Yeah.
I love my wife.
Yeah.
I can leave my work. I don't want to leave my wife.
No.
You know what I mean?
And it's just... they're very different. Like, you don't love your work in the classic sense.
no.
Oh,
You
yeah,
take
you don't
enjoyment
love
from
your
it.
work in the same type of romantic love
No,
as you have toward
That's-
your wife.
But that's what I'm saying, though. Love
Yeah.
is a very blunt word.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
not
too
great.
all-encompassing.
It's not great. We
it's-
need new words.
It's just too broad. Most of the English language is very clunky.
But it is very fun to use such an intimate word in settings where most people don't. So, like, I had this group of friends
What?
where... What's that?
Yeah,
like at a retirement home or...
Yeah. Where are we going with this?
Well, I guess you could... Anyways.
I've had this group of friends where, like...
I love where you're going with
we
this.
hang up the phone
I love
with
Walmart.
love you.
Yeah.
Like, my whole group of friends is like, yeah, love you too. Boop.
Yeah.
That's
and it's-
kind of got like an ironic spin to it, though.
But it's not...
No.
Nope.
Well, I'm sure there's truth to it, but it's like a
okay.
fun.
There is a bit of a spin. It is a
Yeah.
bit fun, but no, it's mostly to encourage like closeness, intimacy,
Yeah.
vulnerability.
Yeah, that's like... There's certain relationships that I have that with as well, where it's just like, yeah, no, it's love. It's
Yeah.
not maybe love,
Yeah.
but it's love. Like, I care about this
Yeah.
person to a degree that is more than like.
Well, like for me, I come from a background where like my parents didn't tell me they loved me. Like
really?
it's weird. Like it's still weird when I call my parents to like. I started using it intentionally, and now they say it back to me.
Nice.
I just
But-
have to say, this will be the episode that if anyone's still watching, the episode of Remy Show number 50,
Yep.
where
Episode
we
of
try and
love.
define love.
But I
We'll
don't
get
think,
there, man.
I don't
We
think
have-
many people made it when we first started getting high. We had a really weird
Yeah.
pool of words for a while. I don't think many people are gonna get past that.
I
Well-
thought it was fine.
I'm
mean,
sure
I had a
it's
good
not,
time.
I'm sure it's not as bad as I'm thinking it is right now. How could it be? However,
How bad do you think it is?
it should be thrown in the inferno.
Well, we get
He's self-conscious.
Well, I think at the point when I started,
There's no reason to be self-conscious.
No,
I think we were just chasing our tails for a hot minute.
when we were married to that podcast topic, right? Mm-hmm. But I think when it all started going south for me was when I was trying to talk about the podcast continually
Yep.
and it wasn't working. I kept falling apart on the same note.
That's okay.
I'm like,
Which
nah,
I think
we
is
need
very
to get off this
appropriate
topic.
for a 50th episode
Yeah.
trip. I feel
Agreed.
like let's talk about the podcast for a hot minute and also be confused about what the fuck we're talking about.
Yeah.
Sounds like a 50th episode
Well,
trip
the other
to
thing
me.
this should be is the Kevin episode.
Why?
Because it's always psychedelics.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right.
That is what I'm talking about most of the time.
We did listen to a 3-hour podcast today about substance use through history.
Yeah.
We're doing that now.
Yeah.
Really?
We're making history. is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
we're making.
I don't think we are.
We're making
50.
a 3-hour psychedelics podcast, and it is history.
I love it. But this is also like, I don't know. I think it's all very beneficial, even though it might seem stupid or.
I got up and did 10 push-ups,
I know.
did.
I've seen
And-
it out of the corner of my eye.
and now
But
it
this
feels
motherfucker
beneficial.
is working
For a while
out
there
right
was like,
now.
I got a lot higher than I thought that dose would get me. But turns out I would never trip and then try to sit perfectly still.
Yeah, it's so uncomfortable.
It's crazy. Yeah,
You definitely spent, I would say, 10 minutes just kind of fiddling with your pants
yeah, I'm just kind of like, oh man,
while Kevin and I were talking.
I could do a headstand or something. That'd be great right now.
Which is totally cool, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you
I
were
can't
doing
do a
your
headstand. I
it's
don't
not-
think.
And then you come back with, well, I missed almost all of that conversation. Here's what I think, though.
I don't know what you guys are talking about, but let me just step in here for a moment.
Fuck whatever you were saying. Here's what I'm saying.
I hope it's coherent.
It's
when we
okay,
listen
don't
to it
worry.
later.
Nothing we were saying was
I will listen to
coherent.
this episode
Yeah, I know.
Of course.
This one's fun.
when I finally admitted my feelings for Kevin. We did it.
Yeah,
Love?
we did.
Yeah,
I
how
would say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
We're
sounds
bonded.
like the end of the podcast when you say we did it.
No.
Oh.
I mean, technically, we're always in the present, so we're always doing it.
Exactly.
That's where a lot of my life is like now is just a continuation. I feel like you could have rolled the credits when I was 30. Like everything that I was doing was kind of like, wow, I did it. Like the whole narrative that my life was leading to of
I do find it weird that life you never get to that. You never get to the credit roll.
you don't
Yeah.
get to the credit roll.
It's like,
but you,
60 or so more years to go. Hey.
So I intentionally try to view my life and direction from that perspective to go a little easier on myself.
Yeah.
Because like once I got to like 30, 31, I was like, okay, I've lived a great life so far. I couldn't complain. I could die tomorrow and be like totally satisfied with my array of experiences. So I try to live life as if, hey, we're just in bonus feature land.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well-
just do some things, take it a little
Have
bit
some
freaking
fun.
easier.
there were points in my life where it would have been shortchanged if I had to died. I would have felt like that. Damn it, I had farther
Yeah.
to go with that.
Yep.
But now it's all gravy, and that is truly how I feel about it. Like when I married Sarah, it was a very Disney ending. It was like, look, this guy's been engaged 4 times. It's been with the wrong women. You know, he's got his tattoo project finished. His bosses are at his wedding. Like my bosses were at my wedding, and like it was just this very like.
I hope they didn't cater.
No, they didn't.
Okay. Will you please come to my wedding? I'll pay you to
No.
bring lots of food.
No, they were there, just guests. They
Nice.
were honored to be there. I didn't invite too many of my own people. Like I invited like just a handful. It was mostly our family. But anyway, it was very Disney ending. So after that, it was like, but I still have to live. Like there's got to be life.
Every
after.
day still seems just as long.
Yeah, but everything else just kind of feels like it's gonna be just. And they lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, that's one of the reasons that like.
It's why I don't like part 2s to movies a lot of the time too.
Yeah. Well, like I feel like kind of in my 30s, from the looks of it, I feel like I'm kind of doing a new storyline.
That's what I'm doing now.
It's just like, oh yeah, I'm doing the side project.
Okay, so Jer's story is over. Now I'm creating Remy.
Yeah, basically.
Really? It's
Well,
like
and
a
I think I'm going to
multiple
do that
personality.
like every 10, 15 years. I think I'm just going to take a left turn and
Well,
then
I
You
go
think you can
something
do that
different.
forever? Or
At
does
29 and a half, I started tattooing and drawing.
Yeah,
And,
like-
and now I'm here, so I'm like, man, when I'm 40, I can't wait to see what I do.
I know. That's one of those
Could
like.
be a weird
Well,
turn.
by then you'll have 20 career changes at the rate you go.
Do you yeah, fair. 90 other careers from
That's only one big turn so far, really.
But like, this is one of those things that again is like a narrative thing where it's like, okay, you get out of your 20s and you get married and blah 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 blah, and it's just like that's when credits roll. But you have so much more time. So
That's
it's like,
just the
why don't
problem
you
with
keep
how we-
reinventing yourself and
how we
progressing
see
and
life,
changing?
maybe?
and- yeah. Well,
Right?
we wanted that 90-minute cozy story.
When I'm 50,
You know
I'm
what I
going to
mean?
look back in this conversation and be like, ha, time. That went by quick.
No,
Well, of course, because all those years previous to us are all like that, right?
This actually ties into the whole podcast thing. When I started this podcast with you and Lee coaching it along at the start, it was like, I've really only got 10, 20 good stories.
Yeah.
So I better get those episodes in, like get those into the episodes early.
Yeah.
When people are still watching, right? Because they're not watching anymore.
Well,
you
no.
know what I mean? Like not this far into this episode. It's gonna be like the 5-10 diehards.
Yeah, don't save one of your best
But
stories
that's
for
how
right now.
That's how I listen to podcasts. I listen through the whole thing.
If you start.
Sure.
If you start.
Yeah.
And if you start becomes the main factor because there's so many of them,
Oh yeah.
right?
I definitely can promise you I don't finish every podcast I start.
Oh really?
I'll get 20 minutes in and be like,
Well, it became a big
Music.
problem for me when I'd be looking at podcasts that I wanted to get into because I was a podcast a day guy, like working in the mornings. I would put them on for 2-3 hours. And if you only had 10 episodes, it didn't mean you wrote the whole story. It meant you got bored or you fucked off at some point. That's what it meant. It didn't mean, oh, well, that was all there was to say.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't want to do this anymore.
That's what a majority of people hit, I think. Unfortunately, but like
So
I
I
think
didn't wanna
we
get
enjoy hanging
invested.
out.
Well, I didn't want to get invested in characters
Yeah, of course.
because it's like
Why
you're-
should you? If they're not going to invest back in you,
which is an interesting thing to say because these are just people. They're not acting,
but
but
this is
they're characters
conditional.
to you.
Welcome to the world of conditions.
We're back into conditional love
You
as a
just want to
topic.
get on that again. Did
I'm
something
just saying
happen
they're
about this?
they're everywhere.
Did somebody try and fight with you on this recently?
Well, look at what happened with Rogan, right? He had a ton of conditional fans.
yeah.
Because it was YouTube and it worked with where they wanted it to be, and he challenged those conditions and lost people.
It's not just
Did
that
he?
though.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't read news.
Oh,
so
he's definitely lost people because I
Yeah.
can't tell you the last Rogan I listened to.
There you go.
Oh no, I can.
Huge Rogan advocate. Well, like I watch 1 in 10 now.
Yeah, no, the last one
yeah,
I
but that's
watched
also
was
a
when
change
he had.
in pace of the shop.
No, I could listen to them at home.
Oh, fair.
I have Spotify. Like,
yeah,
why don't
I have Spotify.
Speaking of interrupting podcasts, heyo, like we got 20 minutes into one today, and I was like, can we please turn this off?
I thought you guys weren't doing podcasts anymore.
I will make the exceptions every once in a while.
What was it?
It's about 8 a week now.
Yeah.
8 a week? It's
No.
only been 2 weeks.
No, we only listen to probably 2.
8 a week now. Hold on. It's only been 2 weeks of this.
We've listened to 1 this week because the other one we just shut off.
Yeah,
And to be honest, if it's not good, I'm just like, well, why are we doing it?
that's right.
Like, if it's a good podcast and we're all like, yeah, that
I
sounds
know
sweet.
why. Like, I know why you're doing it. Is because how else do we learn?
No, it's
That's
to
the thing.
keep
It's
it's
so-
to keep a certain someone happy.
Oh, I know.
Because if
No,
he's listening to too much of Scott's
But
music,
I'm not
he will
talking about
murder us all.
I'm
That's
not talking
right.
about why
Clearly.
you put them on.
Yeah.
I'm talking about why people listen to podcasts while they're working. Because I can tell you why I did.
I feel like it takes away a little bit from my work, but I love the content of being able to learn and
Yeah.
peer so deeply into someone else's
That's what
world
I was enjoying it
while
for.
I'm getting paid to do my work. Like,
Yeah.
that's super freaking cool to me.
When I'm setting up and I'm doing something that doesn't take takes a lot of physicality, but not a lot of my mentality.
Yeah, see, if it
That's a
didn't take
great time to learn something.
If it didn't take so much focus for me to actually do a good tattoo, then
Yeah.
I think it'd be way more like, yeah, roll whatever podcast, let's get them all in.
You're in a different environment than I am.
Yeah, I think
Right.
like there are times when I'm like really like today I'm tattooing this river flowing through these rocks, and it's all texture and it's complex, and
Yeah.
I've got to get it right. And the chick's skin is turning super red, so I've got to get into an area, get the right kind of gradient, and get the fuck out of there before it turns super red. So the podcast is just distracting me from doing a good
Well,
job.
because you're pulling certain lines out of the podcast, probably playing with them in your own head, and it's confusing your creative.
Oh yeah, well, it's just using a different part of your brain when
Yeah.
you're like, okay, guess what? The spatial part of my brain kind of needs all my energy and attention right now. I don't
Whereas-
need this entire deep conversation between these two very intelligent men distracting me right now.
Like something like Lex Friedman and Sam Harris. Where
That's what I'm talking
it will
about,
take
boys.
all of your intellectual focus to
Yeah.
even try and penetrate.
That's
These are
exactly
two
it.
guys
You said
that
penetrate.
are fairly brilliant men,
Mm-hmm.
having a conversation that's higher falutin than they can even handle.
That's right,
and they're admitting that.
they're cracking these things open. They're like, let's get
Yeah.
into it. Let's
And this is
explore the
you
meat of this
trying
topic.
to-
This
whether
is me
you
trying
like
to
it or
do
not.
my art.
Well, you are. You're
while
trying
they're
to,
getting to the bottom of this.
You're trying to do your art, but you're being distracted with these concepts.
Exactly.
Right. Where what I'm
the
talking
illusion
about,
of the illusion of free will.
yeah, where what I'm talking about when I'm at work is I could tackle that podcast because most of what I'm doing, I've done the exact same way.
Yes, if I'm washing and chopping potatoes,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
super want to
Yeah.
be listening to some Lex Friedman and
Thank you,
and,
yes.
Sam Harris.
So this is where I actually, ironically, or maybe not ironically, but certainly does support this. I got into the Sam Harris podcast heavily for a couple of years, but I ended up not listening to him anymore because it went behind a paywall.
Yeah.
And it's not a heavy paywall. It's just I got too many subscriptions as it is.
It's a No, you're fine.
No, you're in frame.
But
There was a while
that's
where
changing condition.
I thought you were sitting on the floor for a minute. It's like, wow, Scott's legs are long. He's on the floor. And Kevin was definitely at the top of the pyramid, and Scott was sinking off the bottom for a minute, but now it's all level again.
No, I think Scott's way taller.
No, I don't mean that. Yeah, he is taller than you.
It means
There you go.
when I do my slouch.
Yeah, you got to slouch like I am.
At some point within this
More than I am.
conversation, you were raising and Scott was lowering.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's not just my opinion that was coloring it. It was like,
You give me a couch, I'll sit like this the whole
well,
time.
you were receding, and Kevin was.
I just
higher on
hide behind the
elevation.
plant.
It's almost like a sinking ship thing where Scott is at the bottom now, Kevin's at the top.
We're balancing.
I'm sure you know exactly what I mean.
I do.
But now
Titanic.
you're balanced again. So it must be some process of the effect.
Yeah, it's diffusion,
But
osmosis. I don't know what it's called.
Osmosis. I become
is
couch.
that what this is?
It's
Anyway.
in some way, yeah.
Yeah, I got real into the Sam Harris podcast, but it ended up getting, my love for that podcast was restrained by conditions.
Yeah.
How ironic.
Dude, it's going to be hard for you to not see everything that way now.
Well, I've always seen it that way.
Yeah.
I'm not discrediting what you brought to this conversation.
Good.
I know that
Big fuck.
I know that concept is not popular.
No, it's really not.
Like, I don't know why it isn't though. I really
because
don't.
it's
I think
utopian.
that's why robots will be better at running things than we will.
It's just utopian, right? Like we like the idea of everything being good, and we ignore reality to support that like. You know what I mean? We have this want. And that's one of the reasons that I think you have kind of a mental state that seems to be so difficult right now, is because we tend to want to ignore reality and go after something that is more than like hyper real, whatever that would be. Like we tune our faces, we do everything that we can to make it so that our reality is as close to perfect for either ourselves to see or for the world to see.
You're talking about humans' general like lust to achieve more and do more always.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fair.
Yeah, I think it's just like we have this utopic idea, and I think our cognitive dissonance of what we know to be reality and what our expectation is of reality are two different things. And I think we tend to either that type of stuff manifests either like with depression or anxiety or just kind of social instability.
I used to see myself, and I still do, but I guess I don't spend enough time with the other version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I see myself of two minds. So when my life is going well and I'm with a woman that I'm in love with, it's kind of like I'm sleeping, Jer.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm departed from someone or in a depression cycle of some kind, I feel like I'm awake.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm more aware and acutely aware of those sorts of details when I'm bereft.
Oh yeah.
Right, like when I'm in desperation, I'm seeing the mechanics of things, how I can use them and how they're using me much clearer than when I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird thing that when we're happy, we tend to think of love as a cozier place.
Yeah.
But when we're away from that,
Yeah.
it's easier to see the mechanics of it.
Which is also like when you're in a state of love, it's really hard to be doing the things that got you to that place in the first place. Right? Like when you're out of love, you're doing all the things mechanically to obtain it.
Yeah.
And then when you're in it, you don't have the same mental acuity to do the things that would reaffirm and reestablish that feeling over and over again, which is why like relationships will
Once
just
you
fizzle
feel
out.
love, it just feels perpetual.
Yeah.
I got into it.
automatically.
It's
and
like
you're
we made it there.
Well, I'm
and
good
therefore
here. I did it.
We're done.
Let's
Yeah.
carry
I
on.
don't have to keep doing the
stop
things that I
nurturing
did
it.
to earn that position. You know what I mean? Because I've made it, and therefore I could turn all that off.
But yeah, no, that's part of why I plan like date nights and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Keep that stuff going.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you don't check in on those things, you'll lose them. Actually. But
Ain't that the truth?
I find it really hard to not feel like a monster when I'm aware of those mechanics
Yeah, it's
and I'm
because it's-
maneuvering them to get what I want.
It's uncommon uncommon conversation.
And it's also
Feels weird because nobody else talks about it.
But then you go, I'm not that. This gets into an even harder conversation I'm not sure we should have. But it's
Okay.
well, no,
hard conversation
it's,
with you any day.
if you do something that's wrong, is it wrong because you're doing it and it's wrong, or is it wrong if you? Is it
Suddenly
more
this is a
wrong?
question for philosophy.
No,
what
if-
is right? What is wrong?
Is it
there
more
good and
wrong
bad?
if you're aware of it? This is something that I've always had a hard time with. Is like I'll see myself doing.
Well,
something.
wrong to who? If you're not even aware of it, it certainly doesn't seem like it's wrong to you.
Well, so if you're doing something that's illegal, right? But you don't know it's illegal. Is it worse or is it better if you knew it was illegal and did it?
You're doing an illegal act out of ignorance?
Yeah.
Or whether it's...
So knowledge of the act changes everything.
I'll give you an example. So last summer, went fishing with some friends
yeah.
in a creek in a public land use area here, and we went out, and one of my friends caught a very beautiful fish. It's a fish you're not allowed to keep here. And this particular stream, nope, this is catch and release. It just goes back. You don't take this home. You don't eat it. We go back to camp, and one of our friends caught a very similar fish out of the river and cooked it and ate it.
Yeah.
Just out of ignorance. Didn't know the rules.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, it's a weird moral quandary where you did the same amount of damage to
No.
the river as if we had just kept that
yeah.
fish.
But he didn't know.
But they didn't know, and she actually had
Now-
a really valuable experience with her son. She just showed her son, like, oh, we caught this fish and we ate it and it was great.
I give you a different example of the same story.
Yeah.
This person knows that they're not allowed to, and they do it gleefully.
Yeah,
They're
that
still doing the same
that seems
wrong.
way worse to me.
It seems worse.
Yeah, of course.
So a lot of time, what I found myself doing at the beginning of a relationship, knowing how things were going to kind of proceed, and then doing it anyway.
Intentional ignorance.
When I would be dating women from afar, especially though, like when I would be in long-term or long-distance relationships, and I knew it wouldn't work, but I knew that and they didn't. I felt more guilty for knowing that it wouldn't work for the same reasons that it didn't work last time. You know what I mean? Like I put myself greater the wrong for knowing,
Yeah, of course.
but it's still the same deed. We're both doing it as
No,
willing.
it's not. It's not, though.
How does it
The-
change?
the
That's
a-
what I'm trying to understand is how does it change?
Well, awareness is what changes it, right?
But it doesn't make that doesn't hold up in law.
No.
Of course
no.
not. Of course not. Yeah, but like, what?
Because if I don't know or I didn't know, held up in a court, everyone would use it.
Yeah,
so
I
that simply
understand.
just can't be part of
But
the
that-
law.
But like, it's hard to judge yourself off of something that everybody's doing.
So say it's this way, where it's like you made a mistake and you did an error in a way that you did not know, and you're going to correct it and not do it again, right? Or you're doing that exact same action knowing that it's incorrect, is intentionally, that's going against you, right? Because I'm not talking about the court of public opinion, or I'm not talking about the legal court. The person that you have to hold yourself to account to is your own brain, your own ego.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
And
for sure.
Knowledge of those things makes it worse for your ego and your own internal dialogue.
But that was the part that I kept coming to was, am I worse than this person?
Yeah.
Or are they the same, but they just don't know how bad they are?
So
kind of
if you
thing.
want to go into a religious version of this, the idea of sin.
I don't want to, but we can.
So like that's the whole nature of sin, right? Sin would be doing something contrary to what you know is the right action. Okay?
Well, it wasn't that I thought I would think, oh, this is the right. It's
What would have been the right action in that?
so the right action would be going against my nature,
Sure.
but it's not because it's what I'm doing is bad. It's because I know it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So like if I know I've done this thing over and over again, but I want to do it again, and I'm gleefully doing that,
Yes.
and this person is doing it, say, for the first time, I feel like more of a villain in the matter.
Yeah.
Even though
Because you know the correct course and you're choosing against
I
it.
know a different course.
No. No, different in terms of this, like you are your own compass in this respect, right? Because you have to look yourself in the mirror. There's a decision that you are comfortable with, and there's a decision that makes you feel guilt and shame, right? We all have that inner voice.
Guilt, for sure.
Yeah. So if you're having a guiltless and a guiltful action, the guiltless would be the right one.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying. Because, like, if you're doing something out of ignorance, that guilty doesn't come with it until you've been given the awareness of it, right? And then to continue on to that action with the awareness of it will maintain that guilty feeling.
So
That's why if you're a
gone?
sociopath, you don't have the feeling of
Right.
guilt.
That's what I would always get to is, like, am I a sociopath to be having these?
No, because you have the
conversations?
awareness of it.
Right.
If you didn't have the awareness of it, yeah, you'd be a sociopath.
But you don't. But no. Because, like, you don't hear anybody talking about this stuff.
Of course not.
Like, when was the last time you listened to somebody talk about this?
I'm listening to different people, so
It's
is more common.
It's a very personal and vulnerable thing to talk about. Talking about, man, I might be in this relationship for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
That's a pretty bold thing for someone to say that
We're
requires a
still
lot of
talking
self-awareness.
about unconditional love. I love it.
yeah.
Here we are.
It's
Sorry.
just so derivative. No,
Yeah, it
it's you can go any way with it.
Yeah, of course. It's the topic to kill all topics.
Yeah.
It's the Highlander.
The Highlander.
But becoming aware of your conditions and then finding people that you know can fulfill them, it feels worse than when you're ignorant to that process.
Yes.
Which is why your sell is harder. Because none of this is unique to me. I'm just becoming aware of my own operations and going,
Yeah.
man, are we doing this again?
But that's what we should all be doing. We should all be becoming more aware of our own operations rather than blaming the world around us for imposing itself on us.
Which is, Scott and I had a conversation.
Like if you,
on
in that
last
relationship, if the thing that you got mad at and put all the blame on it was distance. If you were to just say
Yeah, it's
physical distance, how dare physical
It's
distance
an
make me
easy
do
obstacle.
this thing?
It's an easy way out.
Yeah,
right?
it's a scapegoat
when
to the
this
thing that
falls
you actually
apart,
know.
We can blame it on this.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be my insecurities or yours.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to look yourself in the mirror and go, I'm choosing something that is wrong because I want it.
But
right?
it's different because wrong is a hard term again.
Yeah, of course.
Wrong is a hard term
Because it makes you feel bad.
yeah.
It makes you feel bad as a human. But like that whole notion of like I'm a bad person, that's not real. I'm a good person, that's not real. We are people that have the capacity to do good and bad.
So what makes me a bad person is hurting other people.
Sure. But
Because that's what
you're
I was
doing
worried
bad.
about. I was fine with hurting myself in these scenarios when they end. I wasn't okay anymore with the damage it was going to impose on others.
That's good. That's
Because I was
also
starting
not
to get
sociopath.
Well, no, but I was starting to get like a little too endurant.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I know I can survive this, but I don't want to do that to someone else.
Yeah, but anybody can get tolerant to a negative situation, you know?
Oh yeah.
It's like people go to war and get used to killing people. And that's just the reality now.
It becomes more
It
comfortable.
doesn't make them a sociopath.
So then it becomes
They just got used to this one negative thing.
you have to be responsible and pick people that things could go differently with.
Yeah, you gotta make a smart choice.
Where I made a real quick right turn when I met Sarah. It was like, I have to do this because this is better for me, even if it's hard to start. And that's where I was saying that if you were to roll the credits on my life, it's when I ended up marrying my wife.
Yeah, you fixed it.
You
were the hero.
I was the, fix it just for you. It fixes it for your whole line, right?
Yeah.
Like it changes the whole direction of that story.
Which is totally understandable why you would want that credit roll.
Yeah.
Because you did the hero's journey. You did the static thing of like, well, you did your character change.
Character growth.
Yeah.
Right.
You did it.
So then
you did what we're supposed to be done. Like that's the movie.
So then the introspection goes further. It goes, okay, what do I do next?
Yeah.
You start taking your first journey and building into your next journey with it, which was starting the blackout stuff, really getting involved in the Instagram, like building Remy, using the best parts of Jeremy to create a better online version that could sell, right? That could potentially make everything that I went through useful to me.
Yeah.
And here we are now talking about it. What is this, 2.5 hours in probably? How
No,
far are we?
We're a couple hours. Yeah, we're just about 2 hours.
I figured I was on track for time.
Yeah.
Normally, I'd be getting tired of this conversation by now.
Yeah, I know.
But I mean, none of this stuff that I would have went through would have been useful for anything if I didn't build a platform with it.
Except for your own personal experience.
Yeah. But it's done that job. As
Yeah,
far as
I
I'm
see what
concerned.
you're saying. Yeah, you're there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I
You're
can't
going,
get
and
farther.
credits roll in this
But
one
again,
experience,
credits
this one
rolled,
hobby.
right?
Yeah.
So what do I do with all of this other than use it to do something else for me now?
You're like, shit, I didn't think humans would last this long. We're here
Really?
now.
Yeah.
What do I do?
We don't plan for what we do next.
No,
No.
of course not.
So then when there's next to do, it's like, didn't need to get better than this for me.
That's the thing. Like, I'm now stoked for my next few nexts.
Yeah.
Like, if I get them,
What does
if I
that
get
look like
if I
for
get
you?
to have nexts, I'm stoked on it.
I love how this whole thing's went back to like a Remy character build. It's perfect for the episode we're on.
Like for me, I want to get good at tattooing. I want to explore that world. I would love to travel with it because I think that would be wonderful.
Because traveling's the tits in
I
general.
want to save as much money as I can and like open a psychedelic clinic, and probably pursuing psychedelic clinics will be my, after this story arc, it will be that next story arc.
I was going to do when I'm 40.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of
Yeah.
at. I want to
I'll
be
be
in
a
that
shaman.
lane. I want to be in that lane of not even that I'll
just
have
grow
to
mushrooms.
facilitate.
It'll
I'll
be great.
just,
a mushroom farmer.
but I want to make a facility for people to have that
That
ability,
doesn't
right?
surprise me.
Yeah.
Another new job.
Well,
I'll
that's
be a
an old
mushroom
job.
farmer.
You were a farmer at one point in time.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
See?
So it's a
I know.
throwback.
Yeah. Throwback Thursday for Scott. But like that and then I don't know what it would come from there. Like, 10 years after that, like, who knows? I'd be stoked to do something else too.
Your
Maybe
next
I'll be on
choice
Mars.
will
Who
be
knows?
colored by the next 10 years. You
Yeah.
can't make a 10-year prediction, let alone
No.
10 years after that.
How do we do
So,
that nowadays?
Yeah.
Like you can barely plan out 10 weeks.
How can
You can't
those
plan out 10
No.
days. Most people can't even
Ugh.
figure out what they want for
how
dinner.
can those
Yeah.
people living on Mars go about
We're
their
not gonna
daily
talk about
life
Mars,
building
are
a
we?
colony if Kevin's not there to grow the mushrooms
Yeah.
to supply their daily
Well, there might already be
Microdose?
mushrooms on Mars from what they've seen. So,
Yeah, but
that
those
right?
psychedelic ones.
well, who knows? I would assume so. Maybe that planet is already tripping.
Aren't most mushrooms to some degree psychedelic?
I don't believe
No.
so.
But
No?
they're all poisonous to some degree.
Because psychedelic specifically has a serotonin-like makeup.
See, now we're learning on the Remy Show.
There we go.
Look at that. Something good came out
Like
of it.
that,
at this
that's
late
that's a
hour.
very interesting thing about a lot of drugs. A lot of drugs are just serotonin-like.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you put LSD and serotonin and psilocybin and there's a couple others,
Yeah.
all in a row, DMT, all in a row, they all look super similar. They're all just
Yeah.
they're all just serotonin with a couple extra little
Well, that was
tweaks
the
here
thing
and
when
there.
you're a kid. It's like, oh, stay away from mushrooms because if you eat the wrong one, right?
Yeah, you'll die.
It's actually very hard to find one that isn't.
So
Mm-hmm.
there's actually a lot of one type of very poisonous amanita
Yeah.
that grows in Vancouver
Yeah.
because all these trees were brought over from Europe when Vancouver was first settled and planted there, and then 100+ years later, and like, sorry, the little bit of fungi was just wrapped around the roots of these trees.
Yeah.
And took like 100 years before these actually manifested as mushrooms. But now, all over Vancouver, there's these super poisonous mushrooms
Mm-hmm.
that will kill you. Like, you'll have a slow, agonizing death, and then like
Didn't you just say you wanted that?
48 to 56 compared to
Correct me if I'm wrong.
compared to
He's got plans when he's 90.
What
That's
kind
right.
of mushrooms are you farming, Scott?
The kill ya kind.
that's right.
The kind that will give you a slow, agonizing,
Slow, agonizing death.
and you'll be able to feel your death the whole way.
Yeah. Because you wouldn't want to not.
Yeah, I don't want to miss my death. You
Yeah.
just got done saying that. What was it, last week?
Oh yeah, I say that a
Couple
lot.
weeks That's where he's. That's. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, to each their own.
No, I know. It's just it's interesting parallel.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'd rather it not be slow and agonizing, but
I'm pretty sure we can quote you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you said that exactly.
pretty sure
You
you
would
said
like
being
to be
eaten alive was
eaten
fine.
by a bear.
You
Hey,
thought that was better
than a
dying.
Good Lord.
better than a piston to the head,
I don't know.
in which I can't
Well,
experience it. Also getting
don't
eaten
know
alive by
that.
a bear is
See?
much quicker and very different
I'm-
than getting poisoned by a
I'm
mushroom.
kind of separate on this because I think Kevin wants it over quick. You want it over slow, and I'm like, yeah, it's just so long as it ends.
I'll take whatever.
Just however you want to do it. Just make
Just-
sure it's over one day.
Yeah.
We're gonna
like-
edit this so that's the last 20 seconds of the podcast.
Yeah, just
Well-
death.
Well, really, any time. Like, this could be the last day, and it would be fine. I don't need more. Whatever I do get is fun, and it's great. I'm not looking to die. I'm not... There was a time in my life when I was honestly suicidal for quite a bit of my youth. Like, as much as you and I talk about positivity and, you got to get up and get after it, there was a lot of periods in my life
Where you're like, why bother?
it was like, hey, just fucking kill me. It would be better than tomorrow, having it tomorrow.
Easier, not better.
Easier. Definitely more comforting to think of. There were times when sleep, it felt like I hope I never wake up.
God.
But
That's sweet
It's a bad
depression
time.
right there.
That
But-
is, yeah.
I know that vibe.
obviously there's life at the end of that.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
now
yeah,
I don't
goodness.
feel that way.
Yeah, it's weird though that like even just coming to terms with the fact that that's something biochemical that's happening to you at that point in time, and coming to peace with that.
Biochemical, but there are circumstances that make it feel.
So
Those
all
circumstances produce biochemical
Sure.
reactions.
Thank you.
Actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, if you're a sociopath, you don't have the wiring happening anymore. None of those situations trigger any of that, and we can prove that.
Or
That's
they
a
just
problematic
trigger it
term.
asymmetrically.
Yeah.
You know what it is,
Exactly.
though, where I started wondering, am I a sociopath because I'm thinking these things as I'm doing them? It's like, no, that's a problem with the term sociopath becoming too familiar to us.
yeah,
We're
we don't
using
understand it
like,
correctly.
you can call someone that when they make a left turn that you don't like. It's like, hey, they fucking sociopath.
yeah,
It's
we
like,
throw around
wait a
terminology
minute.
too easily.
Wait a
I
minute.
had an experience where I was trying to break up with this girl slowly and reasonably, and she started trying to use the word sociopath because I didn't have feelings for her anymore. And I was like, yeah, no, I just don't have feelings for her anymore. And
Yeah, that switch
my
turned
closest
off
friend
for
at the
me.
time just like got on board with it and totally supported that kind of language. And I was like, you guys are killing me. Like,
You're the sociopath.
buddy,
Yeah.
I'm trying to end it with her. You're not helping.
But this is again their ego is preserving their hero stance.
That's right.
Like
Yeah.
you have to be something evil, a sociopath, to not
For them
see
to be the
value
hero,
in
I have
me,
to become the villain in the
right?
situation.
Like because
That's
I'm a
right.
hero, and if you don't see me as a hero and you don't want to love
That's
me,
right.
then you must be evil.
Just like if you're
Can't
mad
we
at
all just be the villain then?
Well, we all
Oh,
are.
yeah.
Like
Everyone
that's,
is,
That's
and
how
everyone
I
isn't.
approach almost every scenario. Is
Yeah.
we're all just a bunch of villains, seeing
Just-
what we can get.
But
from
we're
one
also
another.
the heroes.
It's that same.
Everyone
concept.
is.
If you're
Everyone's
mad at-
both.
If your partner does something really cool, you automatically start thinking more positive things about them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're mad about them for not taking the garbage out, you'll automatically, since that one thing kind of pisses you off, you'll automatically
Yeah.
villainize them more
Yeah.
by trying to think up more negative things about them.
This is
it's
where
it's a negative feedback cycle.
my love becomes unconditional because I don't really focus on those things.
Well, that's
they all just kind of
this
fall
circles
by
back
the
to that
wayside.
conversation where like my natural personality type would super be to focus on the negative things, right? That's super how my brain works. But I've learned over the years, like, oh no, those things get swept under the rug. Don't think about those things. Not they don't exist, but those aren't the things to focus
Well, that's
on
because-
in regards to other people in general.
See, I've mathed that out too. That person takes such priority in your life that you absolve them of all their flaws now.
Exactly.
Because you can't part with them.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can still admit that they're there in your mind, but you're like, no, I don't sit here and focus on these things because this person has value to me that
Yeah.
dramatically overcomes any weird little things that my focused mind would like to focus
So
on
that's
negatively.
where love can become, in a way, unconditional.
Yeah.
As long as it's fulfilling your conditions of it.
Hey-o.
So say that exact same person now wants to move to Dubai. 2
I
years
mean,
from now.
I'll fucking go to Dubai.
Yeah,
Well,
who are you
without
talking
you.
to?
Oh, okay.
Without
See,
you.
those conditions change, though.
That's a
depending
condition.
They change
Their
depending
physical
on
proximity
you.
to you is a condition. And if we can't acknowledge the fact that there are some conditions within our sphere.
As long as you're always with me,
yeah.
I could possibly be okay with it.
This is a condition.
Now, see,
As long as this condition is met,
Oh, I understand.
can, you know what I mean?
But I'm saying those conditions change depending on the person.
Of course.
Because there could be someone in this room right now in my place that wouldn't be okay with it. The monkey, he's not okay with anyone going to Dubai,
Understandable.
right? Maybe he's not,
he looks pretty stoked.
or maybe he has some problem with that in general, right?
Yes.
But as long as someone is still my partner, I could possibly be okay with them being somewhere else.
I love dramatic life change so much. Like, you saw me when the pandemic
No
started.
shit.
It's kind of like, wee!
I'm gonna be a astronaut now. Yeah.
I've been
any
too many
of
drugs
these
to be an
jobs.
astronaut.
Whereas I would be terrified.
If I went to space, I would have an LSD overdose. That might be a myth, but in theory,
Why are you saying this?
the LSD, because I'm going to be an astronaut apparently.
Right?
The LSD that gets stored in the synovial
I was
fluid in
like-
your spine gets released when you enter 0G.
Okay. Sweet. So you get.
So it gets released when you go to space.
So you're saying you've done
And now
enough
you're-
LSD over your lifetime to
We're
kill
in
you?
another corner, boys.
Oh yeah, of course.
I don't think you have.
Oh really?
It takes an incredible amount.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
We're in
did you
another
ever see
corner.
that experiment that they did? Because like the dude who invented it, he did like 250 times what a normal
Right.
dose would be.
Right.
In his first time.
Fair.
And like, but they did do it.
And
to
back in the
prove-
60s, doses were like 10 times higher than now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But like, they did give it to an elephant to test its lethality, and they killed an elephant with LSD. So
Good lord.
that
You're
did
not
happen.
proving your point at all.
That did happen.
Yeah.
But it was like
A
pounds
pound of
of it.
LSD.
You know what I mean? Like, this is insane. This probably just rotted their stomach out.
Yeah, it probably had more of a physical reaction
Yeah.
than anything.
Like, just like weed has water has a toxic level. Like, we could drink enough water and all of us die.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
like,
you
that's
can definitely
stupid.
overhydrate. Have you ever drank so much water that you feel sick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've definitely, you'll go for a run or something. You come back and you just need that water.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you're like, oh
Whoa!
shit.
I should have stopped half a water
Wow.
ago.
It was cold and refreshing
Yeah.
until it was death.
I was probably 17 or 18 when I did exactly that.
Oh, I'm telling
And
you,
I drank
once.
enough water, and I went and had the weirdest smelling shit. And I was like, how does
Oh, no.
water make it smell like that? I am going to be very careful.
I don't know
I
if
don't
I've
think it
had
was the
that.
water.
And no, it
had
could,
that.
now that I'm telling the story out loud, it couldn't have been.
Shit.
At the
What
time,
was in that water?
that was directly related.
For some reason,
See-
I thought that water was the
See,
culprit.
I wouldn't be thinking, oh boy, I didn't know water could make you smell like that. I'd be thinking, oh shit, have I been poisoned?
Yeah. Do I have diphtheria?
Probably several times,
What
yes.
strange disease do I have this
Like-
time?
Giardia. I get that all the time.
Oh, that's my middle name.
Yeah.
Thought it was just those little chocolates.
But once again, the conditions are different for different people,
Yeah.
Yes.
and they feel
Accurate.
different for different people.
Oh, conditional love, right? Of course.
Coming
Well,
on
we're
back to it.
tethered to this topic, and I
Sorry.
don't want
I'm
to
okay
change
with it.
that because it's, you know what, when we're looking back on this episode, that's not a bad umbrella.
No,
Can
it's
we
not.
make T-shirts? Conditional love is life.
No, we need to make the first T-shirt is the Remy Show and then a list of Scott's jobs.
Okay, good.
Which, if we take
It'll
it
be like
10
tour
years
dates
from
on the
now,
back.
will include Mushroom Farmer.
So
Yes,
I
it
would
will.
say
Shaman.
this.
We'll put them on that now just to lock them in.
I would say this. Unconditional love is probably achievable to someone who would be quote unquote enlightened.
Oh.
To
you know
someone who
what?
doesn't rely on any condition to be met in order to look at
Enlightened
someone
is
with
even
love.
a hard term.
Yeah, of course. It
Yeah.
comes with a lot of baggage.
Enlightened is a very hard to catch
Well,
concept.
it's because it's like, at what point do you call it a day?
Well, I think
I need to
Well,
suffer
because
a lot more.
anyone claiming to be
Well-
enlightened deserves a raised eyebrow.
In
right?
order to become enlightened, even to yourself, you have to suffer a lot.
yeah.
And whenever I'm suffering a lot, and I've been there a lot, I'm trying desperately not to be.
Suffering.
So
Get
it's
it.
not,
yeah.
and yet that maps on a little bit, I think, to my tattooing, is I'm imposing that in quantities and qualities that I can control.
I would argue that through your continued tattooing and through your continued physical suffering that you put yourself through, I think that's what keeps you in that mindset.
And I like to visit it, but I don't want to live there.
Yeah, of course not. Why would you?
Well, that's what I'm saying about enlightened. When do you call it a day? When do you say, well, I'm fully enlightened
No,
now?
I think it's just a matter of letting go of
Once you're enlightened,
things.
your ego is no longer asking the question of, am I done yet?
Yeah.
How do you
Just
get to that point,
I
though?
am.
Like, how much do you need to suffer and experience to become that?
I mean,
But see, true enlightenment means you're so in the moment, your ego is no longer asking any of those questions pertaining to the past, future,
what you're explaining
titles.
seems impossible to me.
why?
Because it's taking yourself out of yourself.
Because true,
yes.
true enlightenment only exists in that moment.
But
that you're
then I almost
experiencing
feel like you're no longer a being that we could comprehend.
Agreed.
That's why.
That's why people go
impossible.
live in the mountains and pursue it as an entire lifestyle.
But that's why it's impossible for me to imagine. And if
Yeah.
it wasn't impossible, I would be lying. Because I have become to a degree enlightened about myself and perhaps others.
Sure.
But only enough within my confines. I don't think I can get truly outside of those confines.
I think without dedicating a life to it, yeah, I think it would be very difficult.
Right? I feel like, and it's lonely too. Because if you,
Well, it's only lonely because you require something from others, right? When you no longer require anything from others, there is no idea of lonely.
I wonder if Zen and the mental space within an enlightened moment provides you all the stimulation you need to have a healthy brain chemical balance. Because
Probably.
interaction and connection and even
you would
physical
no
touch.
longer need a partner. You would no longer need touch.
That's essentially what a Buddhist
Because
monk is saying.
I don't need anything the way I need human like touch from
Of course,
my partner.
yeah.
And I'm not saying, oh, I need sex all the time, but
No,
I
no,
need
it's
I need
a love
nothing
language,
else.
man.
But if I don't have that linchpin,
Yeah, after a hard
everything
day, you
else
need to walk in the door and
starts
get
to
laid.
fall
You need to
away.
walk in the door and have a hug, a physical contact, something.
someone to go home to.
Yeah.
You take that from me though, and I become feral,
Mm-hmm.
depraved, right? So those conditions, and why a lot of what, not taking the trash out, all that shit, that falls by the wayside because as long as I'm getting that ultimate safety, everything else doesn't matter. It's all just stuff that happens on the way,
Yep.
right? So that is where
I would
you
just say
get-
that the Buddhist thing, if you're wanting to believe whatever it is that they're believing, it would be everything is taking the trash out.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to put it.
Like everything doesn't matter in that respect.
Yeah.
But I really can't see the little things that happen every day.
Yeah, of
And when
course.
other people can, I'm like, how do you see that? I don't see those
Well, but you
things.
also have a clear focal point as to what does matter to you, right? Because like
Through trial and error.
yeah, of course. Yeah. But I mean, it's like the introspection thing and becoming comfortable with yourself is not something that we encourage. It's not something that we talk about. We say that you should be unimpeded. You should be not trying to better yourself. You're fine the way that you are. Everything should
Yeah.
come to meet you. You should not have to go and meet it. It should all come to you.
Yet we applaud people who go out there and fucking get it.
100%.
Well,
Yeah,
sometimes we
it's-
do.
But
our,
they're myth,
our
right?
society has a lot of crossed wires and contradictions.
100%. Because it's uncomfortable when we would apply it to ourselves. But when it's a myth that we can hold up as a game or a story or like, because all of a sudden then these people that are out there getting it, they're mythology at that point in time. They're superhuman. They're not like you and me. And anytime they present language that is like you and me, people rebel against them. Like, everybody wants to believe that Elon Musk knows everything that he's doing at all points in time.
Yeah, right.
Everybody wants to believe that
He might know now and then.
Yeah.
But
like everybody.
you cannot live in that sobriety forever.
He's just some guy, and his
This
days
is-
are as short as yours
No,
and
but
mine.
So
Yeah.
Yet
you want
way
to
more
believe
frantic.
that about someone. What I'm saying about not feeling like you can ever be truly enlightened, because you have to live in that sober reality where you understand the machinations at every given moment, and not just live in it, but be okay with that somehow.
Yeah.
You strip those layers away and understand the inner workings of why this podcast is happening, who it's working for, and what incentives are at the core of it. Seeing all of that in daylight and go, yeah, I'm okay with all of this.
Are you saying you love the podcast unconditionally?
I think so.
That's
That's
what
what
it
I'm
sounds
hearing.
like to me.
I'm saying if you were able to see everyone's incentives in front of you and not just understand them, because you'd have to be able to see more than just your own to be truly enlightened,
Sure.
and be okay with them and absolve them all, forgive them for their shortcomings potentially, and just exist that way. What kind of life would it take to get there? My God.
Assuming that type of thing comes with work is, I think, also backwards.
And is that desirable?
Like,
Is that desirable?
So
Right.
think about it. Think about it in terms of like a psychedelic experience. The most beneficial psychedelic experience is the ones that you allow to happen.
You
Right?
you don't fight it. Just
Yeah,
accept
because
it.
as you resist or as you think that you're going to have to work to get something, it's kind of counterintuitive, right?
It's just like when I'm trying to keep us tethered to the podcast.
I think like letting go is the nature of those things, where it's like you understand them and you let them go. It's because it's counterintuitive, right?
it is counterintuitive because you think about yourself as your will, imposing your will is getting you further in your own understanding, right? But you can't get to that point even.
Well,
without
Meanwhile, how do you go
Just
beyond
take
your
out-
understanding
Yeah.
if you can't let go of it, right?
Take out the you in that, and then what does it mean?
See,
right?
we're into areas that I feel like we can't.
But I think with normal things, we think that it takes effort and work and all of these things that are classics within our own narrative. And I think it goes the opposite direction. I think that we see, yes. Now I'm distracted.
Why?
Why would you do this?
You know that there's no way for us to get back.
I showed you my butthole.
Yeah, it's just a fun.
I've been waiting for the perfect
We're getting a
moment.
little too deep.
Yeah.
Was
But
that it?
I just think I think it's less about
The problem
trying.
with this is we could go for days.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I don't think that I will ever be, and I would never claim to be. I don't think that I would ever be enlightened
No.
because I can only see far enough into myself and others to know I'm not that smart.
However,
I also like living in the world.
Should you attain nirvana or zen for a very small period of time,
oh, I've
you
been,
were enlightened during that
I
period of
have
time.
been
Yeah, that's
there
fair.
Yeah.
to an uncomfortable degree a few times, and
An
immediately.
uncomfortable degree of nirvana.
Well,
Doesn't sound good.
not so like clear sight as to why every single thing in my life is happening the way it is, but then I shiver, recoil, and run from it.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like
Uncomfortable clarity?
if I stay
Yeah.
here much longer, I will die. Right, and that's where I'm desperately trying to get back to sleeping, Jer. As I said, comfort makes me not think about that as much when I'm away from a partner in general, because the partner is safety. I'm more open to that nirvana, that understanding, the clear sight.
Well, it's
It
like
scares the hell out of me when I get there, though.
Well, I don't ever think that's something that I really want to pursue wholeheartedly because I still like things.
And
Yeah.
we
I
can
still
only
like
choose.
finding enjoyment.
You only choose so many things in your life
Yeah.
to truly be an expert at.
Yeah.
And it's a weird turning point in your life when you realize, oh, I don't have time for to be a true expert at all of these things. I have to pick a few lanes and pursue those to completion. To be,
Or at least as close to that as I can get.
oh yeah, like we're really measured. Our entire success is measured by the things we finish, right? So as you progress through life, you realize that you can only finish so many lanes and avenues.
Which is maybe why we want those credits.
Yeah.
It's like, I really don't want to have to start something again. Because I got so good at this
I
thing.
feel like this is enough things.
And maybe I'll suck at the next thing.
Yeah.
No, it turns out you can get good at things and just keep going.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you that.
No.
But
They don't tell you that. You can just keep on
we
going.
talked about
Yeah.
this
Keep
on
on
the
trying
last
stuff.
podcast. It was just you and I where I said, you are uniquely better suited to be flexible than, say, Kevin or...
Physically or?
No. Oh, maybe. He is.
I'd say so.
He is always doing those.
Yeah, I know.
stretches
I'm
and
quite
stretching.
athletic, but my flexibility
Yeah,
is
so-
medium at best.
Well, I'm sub-medium.
Emotionally, mentally, however,
Yeah.
definitely, Scott seems to take up more avenues more often.
I crave change.
But I'm sure that when I do that in my own way, but we do that periodically more and more, it gets easier to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I all of a sudden took another job and then I left that one in a year, then maybe I can take another job in 6 months.
It's a skill.
Right?
Yeah. Whereas a very formative time in my life, I was like just leaving home and doing this over here for a period of time. Yeah.
Because I see it and I'm like, I couldn't do it.
It just became so normal to me.
Yeah. But I guess that's a lot of what I do. It becomes a superpower to someone
whereas
else.
a musician eventually finds touring to be a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
Even though it's this very mobile,
Becomes
very
mundane.
disruptive lifestyle. Yeah, it's boring after a while.
Well, that's what, like, I remember I was playing Stampede, and I took a buddy of mine there, and I let him come backstage with me and all that stuff. And
to him, backstage is a whole experience, probably.
Well, I was playing in front of thousands of people, and afterwards he was like hammered out of his mind because that's how he is. But like, when you're actually playing, you can't get drunk every show. That makes no sense. And not to mention, I had 3 shows to play back to back. Anyways, so he's like, I'm like dropping him off at his place afterwards, and he's just like, dude, you're like living the dream. And I was like, this is boring.
This is not the dream.
No, I am dealing with drunk idiots all the time.
You're like, I'm working on a Saturday night when I should be getting laid.
Well, yeah,
like,
well, that's like being.
This isn't as cool as what everybody thinks.
Yeah,
but that's
I
being
would
the
rather
sober
be
guy
partying
in
right
a
now.
pack of drunks,
Yeah,
though, right?
pretty
Because
well.
they're all having a great time. And
Well, you're the hired help.
Yeah.
You're just, that's what it boils down to. You are the facilitator of everybody else's good time.
So I want to ask
it's
you.
great to do.
This is a great segue to something I meant to ask you before we even started this podcast.
Okay.
When we got to about this point.
Okay.
Because I knew how this was going to.
When we got 2 hours and 20 minutes into it, I knew that I was going to ask you a question.
When I knew how this was going to ebb and flow.
Yeah.
We were going to be real weird for a little while, and then we were going to start evening out. And I wanted to ask you, because I know you had a smaller dose.
Yes.
Was it like being the sober guy in a pack of drunks?
No.
No, because you were a little bit, but not.
Well,
Yeah.
I beat the game.
You are entirely out of frame now, so sweet.
That's fine by me. Oh, wow. My nips
Yeah.
are the last thing in frame.
Nipple height. No, it was not like that.
No?
No.
So you felt like you were part of it, not laughing at the pack of idiots.
Yes. And I don't think it's as crazy as you might think, personally.
Well, no, I don't do this as often.
Yeah.
Right?
But
And
I mean, like, in terms of if you go and watch this back, I don't think you'll be like, man, we sounded like idiots.
No.
Personally, I think it was far.
we got into the mud like we normally do.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we got in
And
the mud for sure. Maybe more frequency than usual.
More frequency, and definitely I never lose my train of thought normally.
I didn't notice that much.
I think we got more personal than usual. But we usually get pretty personal, so what the fuck ever.
Yeah.
Well, I don't worry about that part. I was wondering if, from your vantage point,
It was
you were
not like herding cats, no.
these guys are not. Well, at the point I realized it was going really funny was when Scott was playing with his pants for a minute.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so it's not just me.
I mean,
But to be honest, like I would have to take a considerable amount more for me to not feel that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I'm usually fairly clear-headed when it comes to these types of situations, and if I'm not, I'm at home curled in a bed. Like
Yeah.
I'm curled
No,
up
I
in a
knew
ball.
right away when we started this whole thing. Kevin's going to be the expert. Scott's going to get a little weird, and I'm going to be in waters I'm not used to.
Because I'm not
I like it.
I'm not like super verbal when I'm tripping on mushrooms. Typically, I'll be like, I'll be over here hanging out and then come with a punchline sometimes or with weird little interjections, and people be like,
Which is
"That's
exactly
not
what
what we're talking
happened.
about." Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just became even more introspective.
Yeah.
More out loud.
That's good.
That's great.
That's
what they're
like,
for.
but this is where when you were asking, like, okay, do you think this is a good use for it? Yes, I do.
Absolutely.
Because I think anything that causes you to speak in a way that you would not normally verbalize out, I think is positive. Because if you can't talk it out, you can't hear it.
Oh, well, what I know is the way that you think and the way that I think is very similar.
Can
Very
be, yeah.
analytical.
Yep.
And analytical is not necessarily sexy.
No.
When you start tearing away
unfortunately,
the
I know
layers
that.
on people, and when you go up to someone, you're like, you know that thing that you like doing? It's not for the reasons you think.
Yeah.
That doesn't really help.
No, people don't like that.
You only like doing that because it releases serotonin in your brain.
Yeah.
People
Guess-
appreciate that.
What chemical are you responding to right now? I know. It makes
Living with that sobriety is
people
hard.
find it very dehumanizing, right?
Yeah. Living with that sobriety hurts.
But that's also because we don't talk about it in a kind way.
That was bugging me.
We don't talk about it in a way that...
I love how you're still just standing.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I don't sit well.
We don't talk about these types of things in a way that would encourage further communication. Our whole language around our minds and how things work is very stunted. And you can see it trying to come to the forefront of communication, but it's coming in a very unhealthy direction. It's very ego reaffirming rather than disillusioning.
It's taking advantage of the ego rather than trying to solve
almost
problems.
Everything we do makes it so we can reaffirm that ego-ness. And like that's our whole digital world, that's our whole world in general, is this whole like on a silver platter version of life. And
our ego is always trying to justify its own job.
Yeah.
Yet I've created a persona that's basically my ego, and I distance myself more and more from it.
The idea that it is separate from you makes it so it's not your ego.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying is it's almost like I'm putting the worst parts of my ego out, and then when I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, I'm not really living this guy. This guy is my shadow. It gets too complicated for me to navigate right now.
No, I get it.
But it's almost like the smallest parts of me appear on the biggest screen.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like those are the parts that everyone will see.
Yeah.
They won't care about the real parts of me that are sitting here.
Why not?
They're hard to sell. We already know why not.
No, I don't. I would disagree with that. They're hard to sell to a specific segment of the population.
Which is more of the population.
Yes. The people that resonate with this podcast resonate with it for a different reason than they would resonate with you as social media guy.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's pretty obvious that your social media following don't just necessarily transfer over to this media
Not at all.
Yeah.
No.
Some portion of it.
A very small portion.
Some portion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're at, what, close to 3,400 on the YouTube?
Subscribers? Yep.
So, I mean, that can't have all just happened from YouTube.
No,
No.
true.
No.
True.
But the parts that get you there are often the least interesting.
They're only you're seeing them in terms of metrics, right? But to individual people, like to the people that actually watch this, they're far more interesting, right? Because
they
like,
are.
Like I don't know,
but to get them there,
yeah.
Like I said, like we started with, but which podcast do you choose to listen to?
Yeah.
If you start, you finish.
Mm-hmm.
But why do you start this show?
Yeah, that's the thing. You have to have an investment.
And that's all I'm working towards.
Yeah.
Is getting them to start. Once they're there, I know that there's enough to keep them generally.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Sounds like we're growing mohawks and dyeing our hair red.
Sweet. I've done that.
Gimmick is what it sounds like.
I've done
It
that
is a
many
gimmick.
times.
Yeah.
But I'm very well aware of that fact. It's not.
But I think then
running
like
me.
don't devalue those other sides of you would be my only encouragement, because like you might not, since the metrics aren't there to show that they're interesting or whatever, doesn't mean that they're not interesting to those who find them
It's
interesting.
my quandary of like, do I bother with the long caption that I've spent time writing? Because most people aren't going to read it.
You know, it's one of those things that
I have
if you,
that internal dialogue.
you look at it like, if you do anything for anyone, like, is it not worth it if it's for one person? If one person reads a caption and then gets something from it, is that
Unless
not
it's
positive?
only for yourself.
The paramount of that thought was done with Sam Harris talks about it all the time. It's you can give a $1 to one girl or $1 to 100 girls, and you'd rather give it to that one girl because she has a face, right? It seems like you're doing more,
Yep.
right? So there is something to be said for writing for one person, but if it's not that one person you want to read it, like it's not like I'm writing love letters to my wife,
Yeah.
right? So you're not banking on that one person watching this podcast.
I just think in terms of like avenues for people to pick up stuff, right? Like if all of a sudden you think that if we start making it so that things are they have to be metrically measured in order to have value, rather than if they're not there, no one can find it. No one can find it valuable. If you decided against, it's just like with podcast. If somebody goes, "Oh, it's not worth my time. I'm going to stop it." That might have had value to someone, that you've just removed arbitrarily because it didn't meet your metric, right? And I'm kind of the mindset that we should be constantly trying to put things out, whether or not they have result or not.
Whether they're mathematically successful.
Yeah, because like
that's where I don't understand. Because like
Why?
you're a very mathematical person.
yes, yes.
Why would you want to create something that mathematically doesn't work?
Because I've had
I'm
things,
not saying you shouldn't. I'm just trying to get your.
I have had things matter to me that don't mathematically make sense. And therefore, I realize that even though the metrics don't make sense, they can have value to a very niche amount of person.
And sometimes admitting that things you don't see the value in can still end up being valuable is a way of saying, oh, I have blind spots.
None of this is my
of,
saying I'm not doing the podcast.
I know.
I'm trying to
oh, no,
figure
I'm just
out.
adding to his point.
I'm trying to figure out the logic behind doing something.
You type, if we're going to go back to the example of you typing that comment on that picture, or not comment, that caption. Maybe you don't see the nuts and bolts value of it, but there can still be a value there that you can't see.
Yes. And it doesn't even have to be for now.
That's right.
That might be value later. That might be value 50 years from now.
I still do the caption every day.
You might learn 50 years from now the caption was for you the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the kind of blind spot thing I'm talking about.
It's masturbation with an audience.
Great.
As I often say.
Bring it on. Voyeurism.
But, I mean, on this point, while I'm doing these things, wondering if there's a point to them, I still do them.
Yeah, of course.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because
That's like life, right?
There isn't always a mathematical reason for these things, but we do them.
Is there a reason we get up every day in the morning? Who knows? But we get up every day in the morning.
Because we're done sleeping.
Because, like, realistically, there's no way of understanding that metric ever. Because we could get hit by a solar storm and wipe out humanity
except for
entirely.
Evolutionary biology.
So if we were
we are compelled by our biology to get up and go be a viable mate.
I'm just saying, philosophically speaking.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
If you want to get down that rabbit hole, then we would do nothing ever.
This is the, I have to say, this is the podcast, the Remy Show podcast that's like the Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, where it's like, I don't want to be the guy who's on next.
Well, if it helps, it's just us on next.
No, I know, but like it's
maybe we'll get
whatever
Simon
next
or
podcast
somebody?
we have, it's just going to be like, well, that was a podcast.
It'll be more simple.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that I like about these things. It's like, okay, well, let's get lofty.
Yeah.
Who knows? Because we don't know.
I don't know.
Why wouldn't we just talk about it? Who cares? You know?
It's
I'm
definitely
here
a
to
fun
learn.
time.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
I think we've definitely juiced it out, though.
Yeah, I would agree.
Scott's been looking like he wants to leave for a while.
Well, he's literally vertical.
I often look like that on mushrooms.
No,
on mushrooms, I'm often more comfortable on like a steep vertical incline.
At no point, and it's the same way as it was the last time for me. At no point did I become necessarily hallucinogenic.
No,
no.
And at no point,
I don't get any visuals.
No point do I feel like I need to leave.
Yeah.
I get sleepy and babbly. Is my thing.
Yeah, I know. After a little bit, it's just like,
Yeah, I feel like I could nod off.
Yep.
You get really warm.
Well, it's also
Textures
'cause
start to become more noticeable.
We've been using our brains, so that all that stuff burns through it, so you get tired afterwards.
Yeah.
Fair.
But yeah, textures start to pop out.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, like
Room
different
seems brighter.
panels. The blue of the shine of the couch becomes readily apparent.
I'm
so jealous.
This is where I don't know.
It's
You don't
different
get any
for
of that?
everyone.
None
You
of
don't
that.
see color better?
No, so like
Not better, different.
Yeah.
So I tripped
different.
DMT and I was like, wow, these visuals are crazy. No, turns
Yeah,
out
I'm a little
colors
jealous of
finally
that.
popped.
Because
Yeah.
I've always
Yep, colors finally popped. And I was like, oh, wait, so my most epic DMT trip was what people normally get when they're like, oh, yeah, the colors popped a bit. Nope, that's in the depth of DMT. I'm like, everything's so incredible. Nope, it's just bluer than normal.
I definitely
That's it.
Yeah,
my
that's fair.
coworker and I, who actually the guy who trained me a million years ago to cook, he was on and off a huge part of my life, almost like a mentor kind of thing. He and I wanted to do DMT forever, but it was almost impossible to get your hands on. He ended up doing it at Shambhala one year.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not that hard if you're at a festival.
Exactly.
For some reason, it's
Well,
there.
we found a religion that you could claim it for as a spirit quest, but it didn't work in Canada for whatever reason.
I mean, knowing
I can think of
Canada,
some reasons.
This was back 2010, I want to say.
yeah.
So it was a ways back. I'm sure it was easier to get than we knew how to.
Yes.
But
It's incredibly easy to get. Like, incredibly easy.
well, we couldn't get our hands on it for one reason
That's
or another.
fair. Yeah.
And he did eventually.
Yeah.
He went and he tried some, and much like Scott, he said he had no real great thing, and he was really hoping for it because he needed to get inside and do some fixing. Was his idea.
Yeah.
He was on a fucking journey for it, and it failed him.
I think also that, like,
Maybe
not
his
to,
intentions were wrong.
not to discount Scott and people's biology, and some things will work for people and some things won't. But I think that comes down to dosing. I think eventually you can get to a place where, like, because you're
If you do enough.
yeah, really, like, I don't know that to be for certain, but I just feel like there's got to be a tipping point
Where
somewhere.
you're just like, oh.
Because
this is
everybody
too much.
responds to things differently, right? Like, I can't take a 10 milligram edible of weed without feeling uncomfortably high. And for a number of people that I know, that won't do anything to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, biologically speaking, I feel like there's a way of it getting to a place.
Constitution, but there's
Yeah.
also familiarity.
Sure.
Right? So, like, a lifelong drinker can definitely drink, well, until a certain point.
Yeah.
Because once your bladder, or not your bladder, once your liver fails you, you're
Yeah,
fucked.
you're done.
But if you're a 20-year drinker and you drink like 10 beer a day, I can't drink with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know the terrain.
Yeah.
Even if your body's as fucked as mine at 10 beer, mentally you're better conditioned for
Yeah,
it.
of course. This is home base now.
So that's
It's a
where I was
well-worn path.
that's where I was prepared for here today. I'm like, I'm definitely with two guys that know this terrain better than me.
A little, yeah. There's some familiarity.
But I still feel like I've had a much harder time sitting in the same spot than you.
Yeah, jeez.
So, yeah.
Okay,
That's
shit
because,
together.
again, I don't think it's because I was unprepared, though. I'm in this terrain, similar terrain, quite often in an existential viewpoint, anyway.
Yep.
I often spend times thinking too much about shit and not speaking about it.
Yeah, no, I get that. But that's also where I think speaking about it kind of gets you through it a little bit more. Like, you kind of come to terms with it a little bit. Whereas,
That's
like,
why I write.
yeah, no, exactly. And that's getting it out. I think that's all very smart,
You
very
write?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it was like episode. This is a good time to talk about this one. I think it was like episode 11 or something. We talked about this once.
about your book?
Only once. The book that I was
Yeah.
like a third the way through.
There's a TV show that is that, hey? That book?
Really?
There's a TV show on Netflix that
Where
is
it's
that.
a ballroom and
Well, it's
like
that dating thing.
an algorithm chosen match.
That's exactly
you
what
don't
they
get to know the
I think it's
name
called
or see the
Next
face.
or The One or something on Netflix. It's a British TV show, and that's the whole thing. It's a dating app that
I was
and they
writing
got
this-
shown the
Like it's
wrong
like a kind
person.
of sci-fi thing.
Yeah. They
Cool.
got shown the wrong person and they want to go back to that person, but they're not within their algorithm. Like, that literal storyline is a TV show right now.
I've never
Weird.
seen the show.
I wouldn't.
kinda sounds
It was
familiar
kind
for some
of. They did a
reason.
poor job of it.
I was writing this story about people meeting at a ballroom type thing where they all have masks on. You're not allowed to know their names. Algorithms set you up, and the algorithm made a mistake, and a man meets a woman, and it ends up being kind of like his soulmate. But then the algorithm corrects its mistake
Right.
during their conversation, and then he has no idea who she is or how to find her.
Shit.
And now he has to find her, and he carries out the evening anyway, thinking maybe I'll meet another girl or whatever. But none of these women strike his fancy, and no one ever does again. His whole life is meeting the wrong woman, trying to make it
What a
work,
fun
and
book.
always thinking about this woman.
And then it just sort of ends.
Existential
I just stopped
Never
writing
getting to meet her again.
because I can get to the end of a caption and I can make it sound good and I can make it sound snappy and have a point. But with a book, it's like, if I were to keep writing, I'd have 6,000 pages easily, because I was already at hundreds of pages and they hadn't even
Really?
they hadn't even left the meeting. Like,
What?
It's like How I Met Your Mother and then didn't.
Well, I have the whole
I
story in
never
my
got that
head.
point in How I Met Your Mother. I'm like, where is their mom?
But getting
It
there
happened.
is like
It was sad.
JR Token level detailing of every little thing, and knowing that if an editor gets to this,
They're gonna cut all of this.
So you're
all
like
of it.
explaining the beads and the masks.
Now it's a
and
200
the smell
yeah.
in the air and the haze.
well, no, it's more introspective, like what was going through your head as she said each word, what she was thinking, what I thought she might be thinking after what I said. Like, it gets to that.
Oh boy,
I love it.
I
Sounds
said
like a
this
book of
line.
anxiety.
It's just like
I
like
could see the waiter peering at us from across the room. I wonder if he knows that. Like,
every line, every
I
single
can see judgment
line.
in his eyes.
It's like a
He can
chess
tell I
match.
smoked marijuana last year, and it's bugging him out, man.
Seriously, that's the way it was written. It was like
so I
said
stayed
this.
home.
Well, in a manner, I did stay home because I
just
didn't
thought
finish
this whole
the
scenario
occasion.
out. Yeah.
It was at like 300 pages worth of writing, though, and they
So
hadn't read
honestly, at that point, was there enough development in the plot that you could have it end as he's leaving?
Well, the way I have it
event?
penned was that it was going to be a 3-part story, like a trilogy kind of thing.
That's lofty.
Like, could he reach in his pocket and find like a clue?
It is lofty, but at the same time, when you think of like what's it, 50 Shades of Grey and stuff like that, that's how those books are written. It was
Yeah, but were they actually written as a multiple, or was it like this one did well? You should do it. You should do it again.
I think it was written as an
I
intended
guess I'll do it
3-part,
again.
like Twilight or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Where they're like, it's one story broken up into several pieces.
Right.
And it openly ends with a cliffhanger.
Yeah, and it's meant to.
Just like the
And I
next
assume
30
there's
Star
Twilight,
Wars.
so,
But
yeah.
like I gotta tell you, I can't imagine ever going back to it. It's like I've
dear
aborted it.
Disney,
Yeah,
you're
that's
making me regret
happened.
my Star Wars tattoos.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
But it's an interesting
Man,
thing that I
That
tried.
last movie. What
I don't
in
think
the
I've seen
world?
it.
It's not worth it.
Good.
Don't see
Great.
it.
Those were bad movies.
They're just bad.
But The Mandalorian checked out.
Yeah, well, but
No.
that's Jon Favreau. He's
Yeah.
dope.
He's
That
getting
dude
the next
can't
trilogy,
miss.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're rewriting that trilogy.
You didn't like The Mandalorian?
It's awful.
What are you talking about?
Every time someone makes a decision, and
We
don't
can't
need to go
stay
into
here
this.
because I can't agree with you.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
good.
can't agree with you either. For the world of Star
Okay,
Wars,
well,
that's the
I didn't
best
even-
thing they
okay,
could have
so
done.
Watch it through the
Sarah
realm of
watched the first
plausibility.
season.
No, I don't care about plausibility.
First,
it's Star Wars.
Sarah
Every
watched the
time.
first season, and I was like, fuck Star Wars.
Yep.
And then halfway through, I started kind of going, maybe. And then when she started season 2, I wasn't super thrilled.
Yeah.
But midway through, I was like, I found myself paying more and more attention to the screen.
Yeah.
Every
And by the end,
episode-
I was like, holy shit, this is good.
Yeah.
Every episode, dude, fly your ship there. Skip
No.
this weird bullshit,
It won
and
me
the
over.
thing's over.
Yeah,
every
won
time
me
at
over.
the same time, you gotta say like, well, then there's no story, and therefore there's
too much
no
suspension
TV
of
show.
disbelief for me at like entirely from the episode 1. People make the weirdest decisions for the worst reasons and just follow through with it as if it was a normal thing to do.
I love that,
Nah, can't handle it.
dude. I watched the Fast and
That's
Furious.
that's why I
movies.
can't watch.
Oh, I
like,
can't
I
help
watched
you
the Fast and
there.
Furious
I
movies.
can't help you
They're-
there.
that-
That's
I
where my
suspend all
stepdad comes
disbelief.
in.
like all the superhero
Sit down,
movies.
shut your brain
Yeah.
off, and enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what my life is.
Like all the superhero movies and stuff, I can't do it because all the decision making is based on like, no, that's not a reasonable reason to risk
course
these
not.
lives.
Otherwise,
That's
we have no
crazy.
movie. If people responded as normal people in movies, we wouldn't have movies.
Okay, no, in comparison, have you seen A Quiet Place?
I've seen A Quiet Place. I haven't
They're
seen
making
number
a
2.
second one.
It's already out.
Yeah,
Is it?
and I'm
Yeah.
stoked.
Oh, I need to
That's the
watch it.
world we live in. We have no idea.
No, I need to watch
It's already
that.
out in theaters or whatever.
Those movies got too common though, like Bird Box and all
Yeah.
that shit. Like the ones where it's
If
like
movies where the decisions that were made by the characters make sense.
no, I mean
Yeah, that's too much though.
I
Then we
mean
wouldn't
the
have- we
horror
wouldn't have
movie
movies.
genre that it's all like one of your senses will get you killed.
Yeah,
Which one was it? Was it Bird Box?
Bird Box was the sight one.
Which one was the one where the certain degree of like the people who had mental problems, they became like in love with the thing that they seen, and they seen it as like a god, and then they need to show everyone else.
I don't remember that one.
It would kill other people if they seen it.
That sounds incredible.
Oh yeah. And they were trying to take their.
They're like,
yeah,
"You
that's
need to see
that's
it."
Bird Box.
You need to see it. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, you have
and
to
it
see.
would kill them.
Yeah.
But like the crazy people
Yeah, they would see these things and be drawn to them.
They would be in love with it.
Yeah, because people would have blindfolds and they were trying to get them to take their blindfolds off.
Very eerie and definitely like. I feel like I think that probably was a book first. It's one of those things that I would love to see played with more, like the idea of
just books,
what they seen, like what it looked like to the crazy people,
yeah,
and why it looked so good to them.
Yeah,
it's like their brain works in a different way, right?
Yep. It was a good movie, but it was also like
it was a little overdone. It had a good idea,
yeah,
but it was too big budget. I think.
Yeah,
it's too.
Someone spent too much money on this. It's terrible now.
No,
yeah, once you get past a certain amount of money, then it's like too many people have too many says in this.
It gets too theatrical too.
Yeah.
Like they had a really creepy premise. At first, I wasn't sold because I was like, it's a thing that you see it makes you kill yourself, whatever. Yeah. But then when they got to the crazy people see it as a good thing, I was like, this is kind of
that was the best part of that story.
Yeah, I was like, what is happening here?
Did you watch Synchronic?
No.
I would highly recommend you watch Synchronic.
What is that about?
Time travel when you take a pill.
Okay.
So you take a pill, and depending on where you are... Well, I'm not even going to ruin it.
Hey, Siri.
It's a little like
just
what
watch
we've done
Synchronic.
today.
Add Synchronic to my movie
list.
I've
wild.
lost 3 hours.
Yeah. Synchronic was a good watch. It's like... It's a wild concept. It's Siri. That dude from... he's the Falcon in the Avengers.
I don't know
Anthony
who the fuck
Mackie.
you're talking about, but
Anthony Mackie.
Oh, I know that name.
Anyways, it's him, and it's very good. It was just different. It was a totally different movie than what I was expecting. So
would you say you unconditionally love it?
Nope.